Suzuka for the 1991 Virtual World Endurance Championship. Let's see how we go here in a very tight and twisty Suzuka circuit. And we're going to sit on board with our championship leader. Tied for the championship lead is Borman and Ross Smith. So qualifying all important here with the Peugeots. The Peugeots are very strong in testing. And the practice session just before this, the lights are kind of out here on the track side for Suzuka. Maybe a little bit later or overcast day, but it makes it look pretty cool with the bloom effects of our Factor 2. So welcome, here we go. I think I said World Endurance Championship before. I meant Virtual World Sports Car Championship 1991. And let's go on board with Ben Borman, who may be one of the ones setting the initial benchmarks in our qualifying session. So Ben Borman, whoops. There we go. I started losing his name because the name started tumbling in ahead. But Ben Borman already purple sector 1. That's compared to the times that have already been set. So Ben Borman off to a fantastic start in his bid. Jason Whitehead, the current pace sitter, did a 139.6 in sector 1. Borman's done a 139 dead in sector 1. So 6/10 up so far on our leading man, Jason Whitehead, which was one of the best times in practice. However, I noticed some people grabbing purple sector 1, purple sector 2, and then backing out in the practice session. Maybe not wanting to show their hand quite yet in terms of how much pace they had. I'm not going to name names, but I saw it. It happened. I was tracking purple sectors, and they bailed out in the last moment there. So Ben Borman drops down to 17th with the ones that have passed so far. However, goes purple with a 146.1. That is 1.5 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Absolutely setting the pace, and he's going to have traffic, which might impede that next lap. That next run is absolutely going to impede him. Borman, an insane pace early on. 1.5 seconds clear of the likes of Jason Whitehead, who was one of the ones, again, setting the pace in the practice session, as we have cars slip sliding ahead of him. That's a car spun out. I believe that was Ross Smith. Jason Whitehead is green in his first 2 sectors, goes purple sector 3. However, still 7/10 behind Ben Borman. So nailed the last sequence, but needs to find some time through sectors 1 and 2, the S's, and then the run through Spoon and what have you. Borman, though, absolutely did get impeded on that next lap. He was 3 seconds down on his personal best through that first sector. Whitehead, of course, though, doesn't need to worry too much about Ben Borman because Ben Borman is in the Purist category, making his time all the more impressive. Whitehead, however, is in the Pro category. Negotiates some traffic and does set another personal best in sector 1. Let's go on board with Mr. Whitehead as he goes through the hairpin. Runs on the curb a little bit on exit. Now we're doing the run towards Spoon. Whitehead, dominant force in the championship runnings as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we have Barbosa, McCurdy, and Joe Miller all setting competitive first sectors of their own. See what Jason Whitehead can do through sector 2. Askinis jumps up to P4, personal best, as Manuel Stoll jumps up to P8. Whitehead, again, personal best in sector 2. Through the casino triangle, which I will very much struggle not to call the bus stop, and goes purple in sector 3 again, and purple overall, despite not being purple in the first 2 sectors, will squeak it out at the end by 1/10 of a second. Flies into the stratosphere as he escapes back to the pits, and R Factor doesn't know what to do with that, so ignore that bit. But Whitehead absolutely storming lap 146 dead compared to Ben Borman's 146.1. 0.117 of a second splits them. Next man up is Daniel Kirby, 1 full second behind these guys. So Borman and Whitehead absolutely setting the pace. As actually, I see that Peter Mayer's gotten disqualified for an unknown reason. That Lucky Strike Mazda is a very nice looking livery, and this is one of the tracks where I would expect the Mazdas to do a little better, like to be more into the competitive side, as it is a very, very twisty track. They are obviously the best in the in the twisties. However, we still have some straights here. We still have, a full track to contend with, but definitely through Sector 1 and such, I would expect the Mazdas to be pretty competitive and pretty planted. What a livery. Barbosa, let's follow Barbosa here as he runs through Sector 1 in the Peugeot. Also very planted, these Peugeots. I've noticed a lot of Peugeots are really not struggling with the S's too much. Nice and planted. There's not a lot of slip. Stoll improves to P9 again, or I think improved but stayed P9. And where is Barbosa? Barbosa's a little down on his own time through Sectors 1 as he rounds the hairpin. Absolute stormer. Miller, though, however, did get up to P6. So is he actually disqualified? Because that would obviously throw a bit of a wrench in the situation if he went P6 and then got disqualified. Oh, there's two Millers. Stephen Miller, I believe, is the one that had the DQ thrown at him for an unknown reason. Admins can get that corrected before the race. They cannot get it corrected during the race, obviously, because, well, the admins are racing as well. Ahmed Abdallah jumps to P6 with a 48.6. He's in the thick of it for a potential 5th place is Abdallah if he wants to have another go. Barbosa, a decent 2nd sector. He is going to have to contend with a very short 3rd sector and see if he can improve or not. 48.4. However, his best is a 47.4, so Barbosa a little off on that lap. Donat Prodan jumps up to P16. Well done from him. In another one of the Porsches. Let's see who we've got on a flyer right now. Who do we have? Ross Smith, I believe, is on a flying lap. Although he has a personal best, Sector 1. Might get a little bit of a draft off the Mazda in front. I don't know if that helped or hindered in the end, as he did have to obviously swerve out of the way. Ross Smith does not set a personal best in Sector 2. Let's see, on his timings, it's a little rough in Sector 2 relative to his own pace, and I'm assuming coming out of Spoon and having that other car to contend with seemed like it might help to get a little bit of a tow, but in the end doesn't. However, he does set his own personal best, goes from 14th to 10th. Man, if you take a little bit of a better 2nd sector, Ross Smith could be jumping well up the order, as it's just a few tenths of a second to get as high as 8th or 7th. So Ross Smith definitely more to play for. We'll hang with him for the moment. He's in obviously the same car than teammates with Ben Borman, and they are tied, absolutely tied for the championship lead in our Purist category. Daniel Kirby in his Mazda goes 3rd fastest on 47 dead. Again, the pace that is being set is Whitehead and Borman about 46 dead or 46.1. Ross Smith, again, personal best, Sector 1. It seemed a little bit slippery there in the hairpin. Probably not quite the line he would have wanted or expected. We have a bit to go. The Sector 2 here is actually quite long, as Donut Prodan improves in P16 just behind Matthew Overton. And we have a few occasions where we have Lalonde, Overton, Donut Prodan, Angelides, Peter Mayer, John Mayer, all of those guys within about 0.6 of a second. down at about 16th, or 14th to about 19th. So it's very, very close. Okay, there we go. Ross Smith with the personal best, Sector 2. It's a good time. It's a good sector. It's not quite the pace of Jason Whitehead through that sector, but it is good. And Ross Smith has done all the work, and he's going to improve to P5 with a 48.1. It just proves the point of how on point Ben Borman and Jason Whitehead are. Ben Borman in particular, same car, presumably same setup as Ross Smith here. 2 seconds faster up the road. Ben Borman in the Purist category, absolutely stamping his authority. But to be noted, Jason Whitehead in the Pro category, even more so maybe stamping his authority. Almost 2 seconds clear of the next Pro driver. It's an absolutely incredible effort from Jason Whitehead to be the... Oh, I think we just missed a little bit of a whoopsie. Oh, as Ross Smith is missing a wing. What in the world happened there? So we were on board with him. It was looking all nice and smooth, and I think he almost matched his Sector 1 time as he comes through. Wow. Wow. Looks like he lost the rear end in sort of normal principle that we would expect, and then it all went south in a spectacular way. What a nice shot, though, to be honest. Look at that, the depth of field. The cars go through. Steve Carbon improves to 20th as Ross Smith will make his way back out. Let's see, what I was going to do is grab Whitehead, who is actually on an outlap. It is kind of confusing sometimes, so I do apologize. The timings will say, you know, a very good Sector 1 time sometimes, even though you're just coming out of the pits. I'm not sure exactly why, but it does make it very confusing. All right. Barbosa, personal best, Sector 1. Let's go on board with him as a Lucky Strike Mazda does hop out of the way. Barbosa through the hairpin. It looked very smooth. Currently in 4th with a 147.4 being his best, 4/10 off of Daniel Kirby ahead in a Mazda. Almost takes a little bit too much track on the exit there. 30 cars, 29, 30 cars in attendance here. We'll see the split in terms of classes, but according to the attendance sheet, we might be almost exactly a 10-10-10 split on our attendance, which would be good. Obviously, we want you know, good battles throughout all of the classes. Negotiates Casino Triangle with relative ease. It looked very planted. How fast was it? 48.1. So about 6/7 off of what he is capable of. Not quite the improvement he was looking for, even though the lap started very well. Actually, his pace there was on pace with Jason Whitehead's first sector, so Barbosa did have the top lap pace as Ben Borman knocks it out of the park, going even faster with a 145.7. They were setting the benchmark at 146 deads. I don't know what happened there. He spun out on acceleration. It's not the best way to celebrate getting pole or provisional pole, but absolutely stomped it another 2/10 over Jason Whitehead for the overall pole. But realistically, I mean, it's first by 1.2 seconds over Daniel Kirby, who has stepped in to help the Lucky Strike Mazda teams. And I've actually seen that quite a bit, what Daniel Kirby just did, because I do poke around as people are testing and see how the cars are feeling and who's comfortable and who's not. I've seen the Mazdas really oversteer through that Casino Triangle quite a bit. So I don't know if there's something they haven't quite been able to knock out through the setup, or by getting the setup all ready for the S's, has the mechanical grip maybe dropped out for something slow and tight chicane like Casino. And it's made the Mazdas quite a bit of a handful through there. It's obviously a super heavy braking zone. It's the heaviest braking zone on the track. and then you have a really tight chicane, and you're trying to get every 10th out of it, especially in qualifying. But yeah, I've seen this sort of like snap oversteer through Casino quite a bit. Degna looks good, also a very tricky corner, as we're now going to run off to the hairpin. And this sequence probably feels very good in the Mazda compared to most other cars. You got your sweeping right and your nice, smooth left-hand hairpin. Ross Smith improves in 5th, but not in 11.5. Kirby not quite, it's competitive times, but he's not quite matching his personal best. So while it does show yellow and you might think it is a slow lap, it's actually not. He's right there. If he has an amazing Casino triangle, you never know. He's right on par with his other sectors that gave him the time he had. No, it's quite a bit off, actually. Daniel Kirby did seem like he was giving it as well as he could there through the S's and through Degna, stuff like that. It was a good thing, but Ben Borman absolutely setting the pace and not resting on it, to be honest. He's out there for more. I mean, it's almost unrealistic the gap he has over his competitors. 1.2 seconds on a place like Suzuka. That is an absolute stamp of authority. As he goes purple again, Ben Borman absolutely stomping his authority on this qualifying session. And as someone who's tied for the championship lead, is setting himself up to absolutely have a fantastic race, potentially grab another win with this kind of pace. If he kept out of trouble, Ben Borman would be a little bit unstoppable. Through spoon, it's so planted, and that's, you know, where a lot of the speed comes from as well. There's no sliding, there's very little slip angle. If you even wouldn't call it a slide, as long as the, you know, front tires at least are still going to have a little bit of slip angle. Ben Borman just has so little of it. Now he's going to have a little bit of traffic into triangle. Is it going to impede him? I don't think it will have, and it might even give him the tiniest bit of a tow. It absolutely is going to give a bit of a tow. 45.6 improves by another 10th and a half. It's an incredible lap from Ben Borman. Jason Whitehead 4/10 behind, not on a manual clutch. And Daniel Kirby slots in the 3rd. It's very competitive. It's very intense. And the top two, I mean, the top two guys have absolutely stormed away, but we should note that 3, 4, and 5 in the Purists are split by under a second, and 3, 4, and 5 in the Pros are split by 0.3 of a second. So, battles for the podium absolutely still to play for, but just based on qualifying pace, with good opening stints and a solid strategy, Borman and Whitehead definitely seem to have the pace to bring home respective class wins. Let's look at some results. That would be a good thing to do since we have them. Now, Ben Borman absolutely stomps his authority. P1 in the Purist. Jason Whitehead 4/10 behind Borman. P1 in the Pros. You have to go another second back to find the second of the Purists, Daniel Kirby, mixed with Barbosa, Ross Smith. Walter de Bruyn, 2nd in the Pros, 6th overall. Askinis, Miller, Abdallah, and then followed up by Brian Hall. Abdallah, 9th overall, 5th in the Purists, and the top running Sauber in the Purists, while Askinis is the top running Sauber overall. I was curious to see how are the Saubers going to do on such a tight and twisty track like Suzuka for that sectors 1 and 2. Let's see, we got 20 more guys to go, so let's keep going. McCurdy, Stoll, Uyan down in 13th. Angelidis 14th. I would have expected a bit higher from Angelius. Again, the Mazdas do have that super soft tire, which should help in qualifying as well. Not that they would race with it. Lalonde Sever, I believe. Sever, our first of the AM category drivers, and he is. So Sever grabbing pole in the AM category, followed by Matthew Overton, Donat Prodan, Peter Mayer, and Mr. Vermeulen. See, normally Jake Sanson would have to struggle with making sure that he pronounces everybody's names right. Now I do, and I don't envy it. John Mayer follows up in P2, P3. No, I'm sorry, P2. Again, another class with the AMs. Guy Sever absolutely stomped his authority on the AM category. Going back about a second and a half back to John Mayer in the AM category. Steve Carman, Mr. Salmon, Jerry Chen, Stephen Miller, James Andrew. Welcome to the party. Brad Nielsen Vestergaard. The reason the timing screen has to wrap all the names in the driver's column. Brad Nielsen Vestergaard. Welcome to the party. Oscar Dancourt, Mark Jones, and Eric Moynet. Both of those not setting a time, I believe. We did have some no qualification penalties, so that may be all according to plan. The driver's briefing will be going on right now, which is why nothing's happening in the background. But that doesn't mean we have nothing to talk about. So let's set everything back the way it was so that doesn't come up in an awkward fashion later on. And let's talk about this place. It's a good place. We're going to have orange zone through most of Sector 1, through all the way through the S's. So a good setup for an orange zone, I believe. You know, on that first lap, we want to be cautious through T1 and through all the S's. And obviously, just the magnificence of the Suzuka S curves, the thing that you either love or fear every lap, depending on how your car is feeling, depending on how comfortable you are in your setup. Absolutely the staple of the lap, despite the figure 8 nature of this track. Really, the S's are the defining feature for me, at least. Through Dunlop into Degner, absolutely critical corner to get right. Not necessarily for lap time, but to make sure you make it to the end of the race. Degner is where a lot of races end in sim racing. Through turn 9, up to the hairpin. This sort of blind uphill right-hander at 10 into the tight hairpin at turn 11. Through 12, it's a flat-out section there. I'm curious, though, with these cars, do they need a little bit of a lift as they come out of 12 to make sure they don't fly off into the center of Spoon? And then, of course, you have 13 and 14, the double apex Spoon curve. Also very iconic. Straight run down to the 130R. Probably not flat out the 130R, I would imagine. You know what I should do is grab some laps in these cars beforehand so I can answer these questions. That's one of my main questions. Can you flat out through 130R in these cars? I don't know. They have big wings, but they are pretty slippy. Through Casino, I did actually pretty good at calling it Casino. I'm going to definitely call it the bus stop at some point. You know, this is obviously the older chicane layout, and I believe this actually is... There's even an older layout beyond this that probably is not available in our Factor 2. So we've gone for the oldest we can, which is the old Casino Triangle layout, and then obviously the rundown. So a very, very technical track in a sense. You have the S's, but you want downforce and aero grip. Degner, so critical. Hairpin and Casino, these slow corners where you need really good drive because they're both very important. Hairpin and Casino are very, very important corners. So they're low speed and they're important. And then you obviously have the straights and 130R. So this track has a little bit of everything. All right, so today, 230 kilometers of Suzuka. That equates out to 40 or 41 laps. Next week, we have the 1 hour of Spa back in the hypercars and GTs. We've had a lot of hypercars and GTs lately, and that's because we're about to swap over into 91 season. So we have the 230 kilometers of Monza coming up after that. And then the big one, the 2.4 hours of Le Mans, May 21st. Holy cow. Is it already approaching May and June? So after that, we have the 4.8 hours of Le Mans back in the hypercars, which will be a 2-driver event with some driver swaps. So look for that. All right, the 91 Purist drivers, as I mentioned before, Ross Smith, Ben Borman, a win apiece. Top 2. I thought they were tied. I'm sorry. Maybe they're just the top 2. One of the other categories has a tie. We'll get to that in a second. So Ben Borman did have a rough time out in round 2, despite absolutely stamping his authority on round 1. Ross Smith's consistency will have him leading the championship after winning round 2. Manuel Stoll, one of the most entertaining drivers out there in terms of overtakes, sits 3rd. Angelides in 4th, tied with him. And then we have Andrew Abdallah, Picasso, Mayer, Carmen, and Tammy. Nookie Monsters, of course, with their drivers 1 and 2, lead the team's championship. And then Lucky Strike and Kowalski tied for 2nd. In the pros, Eladrisi has absolutely stamped his authority on this championship. However, is he not here today? Let me just run through the list real quick. He's not here. Eladrisi, our championship leader and 2-time winner, is not here, which means there will be a new winner in the 91 pros. And what does that do to our championship standings? De Bruyn, Whitehead, absolutely... Whitehead potentially on the cusp of getting his first win here in the championship with the absolute incredible pace that he has shown in qualifying. Paul Zwartenborg, Kari Keskinen, again, one of the very entertaining drivers in that Daytona race. Uyan, Askins, Vermeulen, and Venter. So just with Eladrisi alone, we have the Gasoline Aftershave Brothers leading the pack with Storm Rider Racing. That's Whitehead and his teammates in 2nd, with Rookie Monsters in 3rd, and the Hall brothers with just Brian Hall's points so far sitting in 4th. On the M category, Moyne with his win, Ganari with his win, and John Mayer with his consistency. Those are your top 3. Mingus, Carling, Aiken, DeMazzo fill out the rest. Again, a Lucky Strike Mazda team. However, this is sort of the amateur team, or the junior team, if you will, on the Lucky Strike side. So there are many Lucky Strike Mazdas out there on track. 2 are in the Purist, 2 are in the AMs. And I believe, actually, the guys in the AMs are using the clutch, even though they don't need to, but they kind of wanted the experience. So that's very cool. Stephen Miller, Ed Jones, and Guy Severa. Ikari Mistral, just with Moyne's points, are first, and John Mayer sits Highline Racing in P2 in the team's championship, again, just with his points. So, a lot going on with tires, obviously. We've had this conversation twice. Let's have it a 3rd time. The Sauber Mercedes, Jaguar, and the Nissan all have the Goodyear soft and hard tires, with the Porsche also having the option, and the default option at that, being the Goodyear soft and hards. However, the Porsches do have an alternate tire manufacturer. They can elect to go for the Yokohamas, which arguably is a better racing tire. However, you lose out on your qualifying performance. Again, Porsche drivers, if you're hearing this for the first time, you can select that in your car options as you join the server. The Peugeot has the Michelins, similar in more ways than one to the Goodyears. And then the Mazdas are the only ones with a true kind of qualifying tire with their super softs. They will, of course, for the majority of the time, everyone will be racing on the hard tires to get those longer stints as the cars slide around, and they do wear quite a bit. So, where do we stand so far? We're well and truly into a warm-up session. We've had their driver's briefing, and I think we're just going to be in a little bit of a holding pattern. So let's take what you could consider a commercial break. We'll be back in a moment.
And there's no way that he's going to finish. He tried his best. How did he catch it? John Kevin.
All right, people, apologies for that. All right, we got a pit box check going on in our warm-up session, and then there will probably be a few minutes of a legitimate warm-up to go after that. Let's see if we can get some interesting shots. Everybody seems to have already been completed with this attempt, so... Anyway, as we've talked about before, Borman and Whitehead absolutely ready to stomp their authority on their respective classes. There's always the potential, of course, that they trip up over each other for the overall win, but technically not necessary, as they have such a big gap to their class counterparts. It's interesting, too, as well, because the top 5 for them are Purists, with Borman, Kirby, Barbosa, and Smith. The Purists, very speedy, very competitive. I wonder if the shift delay and stuff that the pros have is actually preventing them from getting a little bit out of the car, where the Purists, obviously it's busier for them, but they have absolute control over the car. All right, we do have an update that there is a warm-up was restarted for the pit box check as the driver's briefing went long, which wasn't something we were privy to, so thank you for the update there. So the pit box check going on, and then there will be a few moments of... So look at all the cars. And again, we have no pit speed limiter. It's so I'm just like, Whitehead, you're going to get ahead. Oh, there's a few people at the front of the lane there that are sharing pit boxes. So again, good to know. That's why we do this during warm-up, so you know if you're sharing a pit box with a competitor, just there's a limited amount of pit stalls on each track, and when you're over 22, 24 cars, you start getting into shared pit boxes. Exactly why we run this test during warm-up, just to see if the guy's about to start the race. How are you shaking out? Let's look at some class standings to bring that picture in play. While we watch Whitehead in the background, again, here's your Purist category, 10 Purists exactly. And the highest Sauber, one of the most dominant cars in the season so far, is only 5th. In the pros, we have Whitehead, De Bruyne, Eskines, Miller, Hall, McCurdy, Uyan, Lalonde, Overton, and Vermeulen. Again, actually, one or two more. So 13 pros, going to be the busiest category. Makes sense. It sort of usually is in a situation like this. The Purists, I'm so glad that we have 10 of them, though. I mean, that makes it very interesting that they all have to contend, with their clutch and everything like that. 13 pros. Going to be a busy day with the pros. Let's head over to the AMs, on which we have the 6 of them: Guy Sever, John Mayer, Stephen Miller, Niels Vestergaard, Whitehead in the gravel, Eric Moyne, Maximilian Petrafsky. So good setup. So we have 10, 13, and 6 on terms of class split. Be a very, very fun race indeed. Let's switch back to our timing boxes, and now timing's going to get a little bit weird, obviously, because we're in a warm-up, and this is obviously critical because the guys have just run some very fast, very competitive laps on a empty tank, right, to get the most out of the car in qualifying. When you're in the race, you don't have an empty tank. You have quite a full tank, so the cars are going to feel very, very different. And this is their opportunity to get some running on it. So, with El Idrissi out of the picture today, not in attendance, Whitehead absolutely poised to break El Idrissi's winning streak. Ben Borman set to get back in the winning column after an unfortunate round at Sebring, and then from a I really want to say Hypercar AM, but I know it's wrong. 1991 AM side, we have Guy Sever setting the pace in the Jaguar. These purple Jaguars, definitely iconic, and they're easy to pick out, which makes it fun. However, when there's a lot of them, it makes it tough. So 41 laps to go. In what should be a pretty interesting 230 kilometers of Suzuka. Now we have 230 of Monza coming up. Should be noted that that will be a shorter race overall, just because the average speed is so much higher around that place. So it's the same distance, but if you have that same distance on a higher speed, it's going to take less time. That's just basic math, folks. All right, Ben Borman, trackside. Oh, it's pretty far away. It's a good trackside view, but it's a little too far for our purposes here. All right, let's set the grid on that, and I'm going to do a little bit of... I think we'd be looking at about an hour and 10, hour and 20-minute race for today. Again, Monza would be on the shorter side of that. However, as the cars move out for our pace lap, we're joined by our leading man, Jake Sanson. How's it going?
You didn't think I was going to leave you on your own, did you? Oh my goodness, I wouldn't turn down a race at Suzuka for all the team India and China put together. And it's 1991, which makes it even more exciting. So yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't there for qualifying or warm-up, but thank goodness I made it just in the nick of time, as the drivers are indeed going around on their warm-up lap. Borman and Whitehead out in front from Kirby and Barbosa. And this is definitely going to make things very interesting. Jason Whitehead definitely putting the Nissan into a good position in those traditional Nissan racing colours. But we are in for an excellent battle, with it being Suzuka and 41 laps of the circuit, including, of course, the rolling start formation lap, which is obviously going to be taken in single file, as it always is in VWSC 1991. This is going to be an interesting one. The clouds are overhead here in Japan, so things could get spicy mid-race.
Yeah, it's a good point. We haven't really talked about whether it was very dark in the opening of qualifying, and I mentioned that as well. Like, is it just later in the server, or is it just that dark from cloud cover? I didn't hear anybody talking about rain, but it begs the question, could we get some sprinkles towards the end of the race?
They probably didn't talk about rain, because if they talked about it, it was likely to happen. They didn't
Right.
they didn't want to jinx anything, because obviously when it rains here in Suzuka, boy, does it rain. So they've got to be very careful about that. There's Ross Smith in the Nookie Monsters Peugeot, 5th position behind Kirby and Barbosa. Then it is Wouter de Bruin, who is running in P6 on the starting grid for this one. It'll be very interesting to see what he can do from his position. The server just getting itself updated there. Has Ross Smith just disconnected? I think Ross Smith's had a problem there.
I think... Oh, we reset. We reset.
Oh, well, that gives me an opportunity to catch up with things then. Thank goodness I didn't miss anything after all. Excellent. I thought I just timed it very flukily. But it turns out, no, we were going to go for it anyway. So at least then that gives me a bit of a chance to update everybody, and we can catch up from qualifying. I'm sure you can give me a bit of a rehash as to how things are looking from qualifying, Troy, because obviously we need to give everybody a little bit of an update ahead of the race start.
Yeah, so Borman and Whitehead absolutely stomping the field. Borman obviously in the Purist, Whitehead in the Pros. They did exceptional laps out there, and over a second ahead of their competitors. Whitehead over almost 2 seconds ahead of his nearest competitor, which was Walter de Bruin. So very, very strong pace from Borman and Whitehead, and then a gap down to Kirby, Barbosa, Smith fighting for the Purist podium. De Bruin, Esquinas, Miller fighting for the Pro podium. So it's going to be very interesting for the podium battles. Based on qualifying pace, if they have good launches to the race, I would expect Borman and Whitehead to respectively lead their classes if they can maintain that kind of pace difference. That's a tough pace difference to overcome. But, the cars feel very different on full fuel.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. Clearly, the Peugeots have come out of the blocks fighting fit in qualifying. You've got the likes of Ben Borman, Kinnick Barbosa, and Ross Smith, all there towards the top 5. 3 Peugeots in the top 5. Dan Kirby obviously wanting to go for another decent result in the Lucky Strike Mazda, with Jason Whitehead there in the 2nd position. The Porsche of Wouter de Bruin in P6. Ludus Askinas in the Sauber Mercedes from Joe Miller in the Storm Rider Nissan. Ahmed Abdallah, after his great performance, in 9th position on the grid. Frank McCurdy and Manuel Stoll in the 6th row of the grid. John Uyan in the Jaguar XJR14. George Angelidis in his Lucky Strike Mazda. Gilles Lalonde in the Sauber Mercedes from Guy Sever in the Lavish Spenders Jaguar. Matthew Overton in the Dark Thunder Jag from Donat Prodan in the Weller Porsche. Then Peter Mayer in the Mazda 787B and Jacques Vermeulen in the Logistical Nightmare Mazda. They're in 20th position. Still plenty more cars to talk about. John Mayer in his Highline Mazda. My apologies. Steve Carman in the Lucky Strike Mazda. Then Hugh Samon. He's going to be there in 23rd position. Jerry Chen in the Flying Kiwi Porsche. Stephen Miller for the Speed Details Jag. And James Andrew for the Yesteryear. And then Brad Nielsen Vestergaard in the McDonald's Racing Machine. And then we're going to see Oscar Dancourt in his 962C, Mark Jones in the Flying Kiwi Porsche, and Eric Moyne in the Acuri Mistral offering of the 962C, followed by Max Putravki in the final car, the Lev Speed Sauber Mercedes. 31 cars in this 1991 Suzuka race battle, 41 laps. It does look like we're going to get off to a proper start this time, as we are already up to the hairpin, up at the top, the shell hairpin, in the middle of the circuit here at Suzuka. We're going to have some great battles from the contenders all the way through, but it's definitely going to be an exciting battle and frenetic throughout, with all of the drivers going to give us a very exciting and spicy battle throughout. But for Ben Borman, it's definitely going to be a good start for him if he can get off into the first corner nice and early. I'd be very interested to see how many drivers are able to lean on the apex at 130R flat on the throttle in these Group C sports cars, because obviously you do have to push it to the absolute limit in these cars to get the most out of them. And there's going to be a few drivers out there who might have the opportunity and a little bit of grip on their side to risk it.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I'm very curious about, and especially as we have things like the Sauber Mercedes, obviously the best in the straight, up there 5th through 9th. We have a few Saubers, so it's just curious. I'm just curious, can the Sauber Mercedes maybe be gaining and gaining through this run down to 130R, and might we have some action into 130R between, say, a Sauber Mercedes and a Mazda 787B?
So my only issue coming into the race is that my timing screen is down. Fortunately, the graphics on the stream are absolutely spot on, and they'll pick up everything as we go. And there's only one class to follow in regard. Well, I say there's only one class. There's only one type of car to follow. There are classes within classes, of course, as always. But certainly Ben Borman and Jason Whitehead will be charging forward from the front. And let's not forget that they're in 2 separate classes together. This is going to be interesting as well. The variation on the chicane at the end of the lap there. So we could see some interesting battles and overtaking bids into that final chicane. But the drivers are coming through out of the final turn, and we are going to be in single file formation. We do not go green until the drivers approach the line, and it will not be the timing line. It will be the starting grid line. So the drivers are going to get themselves up to speed. Here we go. And we are underway racing at Suzuka. 40 laps of this circuit still to go, and it's definitely going to be very exciting for all of the competitors. As into the first corner, Ben Borman holds it nicely on the apex through the first couple of turns, and this is where we might see a couple of drivers just get a little bit over-eager into the first corner and start to chuck things away. But certainly the battle is raging all the way through the field as we watch Gilles Lalonde in the Sauber Mercedes try and get himself up towards George Angelidis, and the great battle's already starting off here with John Uyan just in front of them.
Everyone through the S's pretty cleanly. That was good to see. Obviously, that was our orange zone, so now the battle could be on!
And that is a big mistake very early on. That is Kinnick Barbosa. Kinnick Barbosa has thrown it away on the first lap on the approach to the... Oh, he's not the only one! He's not the only one. Was that Gilles Lalonde as well?
Oh my God.
So that was Barbosa. And we've lost one of the Sauber Mercedes cars going off at the same time as well. So a massive mistake there for Kinnick Barbosa. And that has dropped him right down 2 cars, 3 cars off the road in total.
Porsche off on the side as well.
Now, is that the Acuri Mistral car? Is that Moyne? I think that was Eric Moyne going off on the first lap.
could have been. I mean, the event log absolutely exploded when that happened. Oh, there's another Sauber behind it.
Another spin. That is another of the Saubers. Now, is that Ahmed Abdallah? Has Ahmed Abdallah chucked it up at the top of the hill there?
Yeah, it was.
It is. It is Ahmed Abdallah. That's a very rare mistake for him. So what a start to this race. And we just check it out. He was going for an overtake. That's what happened. He was going for an overtake and the door just closed on him.
Yep.
So back with live pictures once again. And Ahmed Abdallah has now rejoined behind Prodan in P16. But, well, a crazy opening lap then to this 1991 Classic Special of the VWSC Historic. So what a dramatic start to things as we continue on our way up towards the first corner. Now that's Angelidis making go on the inside there, trying to make his way up past Uyan into 11th place. And Uyan spins! Now did they come in together? Did they come into contact? Because Angelidis is pulling off the road. So that would seem to me that they've actually made contact there. Angelidis having a go at Uyan. Into turn one, committing. Uyan is not quite sure if he's there. And oh my goodness, Angelidis just loses his braking point completely, taps the back of Uyan. And that's guilt from George Angelidis, isn't it? That's pure guilt. That's not the kind of driver he is normally. So he will feel rotten, but it looks as though the car's broken as well.
I think he was waiting for Uyan to rejoin. So Uyan joined ahead, and then he gives the place back right in front of...
Kinnick Barbosa drops it again. A big washout in there behind George Angelidis. Oh dear, very tricky with these cars. And this is live pictures. That's live pictures. And Angelidis almost spears into the side of Barbosa again.
It is a very busy lap 3 for Angelidis. It is all kicked off, and Barbosa really struggling. He was so planted in qualifying, really struggling with the car on full fuel with a couple moments.
Well, big drama so far then here in the VWSC Historic at Suzuka. A lot of drama already in these first couple of laps. Who'd have thought that these cars would give us so much action in the first couple of laps? And we come to the end of lap 3, although of course it is the end of the second full racing lap, as we watch Uyan try and get himself back up the order. This is going to be on the inside of Carmen. No problem at all. Into 130R, and the Jaguar just bites into the road. Good racing from the drivers in the middle of the pack as well as at the front. Borman still has the 3.5 second advantage over Whitehead with another 1.5 seconds to Kirby. But ever since Kinnick Barbosa dropped it, it has been pretty crazy racing ever since then. And that is Abdallah making his bid on the inside of Guy Sever, and he gets through. So no problems at all for Ahmed Abdallah into P11.
And that pace difference down the straight was very apparent, as Abdallah was, a couple car lengths clear by the time they went for the drive into turn 1.
So good battles all around. This is Miller trying to get his way up the inside of Leodis Eskinis. And you've got Hall there in the Mazda just in behind as well, trying to get his way through. In the Jaguar, sorry, right in behind. So, but takes them for Miller! Spins in front of Hall. It's so easy to wash out there in the right-hander. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, no contact. He just lost it through Degna. It's one of the toughest corners to push through, especially in a car. These cars are so loose at the rear. It is a very, very difficult corner.
My goodness, this is going to be one of those types of races, isn't it? Where everything that you could possibly ask for to happen is going to happen. And you've got Maya battling away with Uyan as they race for position out of the hairpin, and then you go flat on the throttle through this section. You are turning and leaning into the apex as you go, then up to Spoon Curve, where things can get very tricky indeed as the grip changes, and so too does the camber and elevation. So you're dropping down the hill as you come out of Spoon Curve, and then you come back up the crest over the bridge, back towards the front. This is Whitehead versus Kirby. Kirby seems to have got his act together now, and he has closed right up on Whitehead. I think Whitehead's done a mistake somewhere because he's dropped right off the back of Borman, and Kirby is going to have a look at Whitehead, but he's doing the sensible thing. He's just leading in behind Whitehead and hoping that it is actually going to be Jason Whitehead that makes the mistake rather than Dan Kirby in third position. So the battle continues between those two. This is Ahmed Abdallah. He's now got himself up into 9th place, past McCurdy. So McCurdy in the Peugeot just getting out of the way and not causing too many hectic moments there for Ahmed Abdallah, who is picking them off one by one. Remember how he came from the back of the grid to finish in the top 3 earlier this season? Well, this is going to be a little bit easier for Ahmed Abdallah, but not quite so easy, as we watch Overton and Miller battling away for position. Oh, that is Guy Sever up the road, I do believe, in fact, actually. So this is Overton as we watch the drivers continuing through in the yesteryear's Jaguar. That's Overton, with Miller just behind us in 13th. Askinis and Hall dueling away for 6th position. That's about as close to the limit as you can get without throwing it onto the grass. And Hall has got a good exit here from the oldest Askinis. Askinis is going to have to leave him a little bit of space here, is he? No, he doesn't have to, because by the time they get to the braking zone for the hairpin, no major concerns at all. So some great battles, and driving standards still pretty good, as Askinis and Hall still dueling away. Ahmed Abdallah in behind Stoll. So that is going to be for 8th position. This is a great recovery from Abdallah.
Yeah, he had that spin and he's been picking them off one by one, but now it might be a little tougher because Stoll is obviously in the same machinery, but Abdallah is absolutely flying in that Sauber, so this will be interesting as we go down to 130R.
So a little bit of a twitch from Stoll as he goes over the curbs. McCurdy had a little bit of a wobble as well in the Peugeot. Now, where is Stoll going to place his car? Abdallah, surely he's not going to have a go into 130R. You definitely don't want to make that big a risk. He's lining him up. He just blipped the throttle a little bit just to place where the car's going to go. He's going to back right out of it in the chicane. He's got time to do this. You certainly don't want to make any silly mistakes, although up and over the curbs. Abdallah riding the rodeo there through the inside line on the right-hander of the curb. And that's dropped him a few car lengths off the back of Stoll, but certainly for the moment, he's got a good car underneath him. He's got pace to make up. He's got time to make up too, so he doesn't have to rush this by any means as we watch the battle between Meyer, Vermeulen, Uyan and Kinnick Barbosa. Kinnick Barbosa going to make his bid back up the inside in the Peugeot. Dives in. He's going to commit. He has to bail out of it in the end. Kinnick Barbosa is leaned on there by John Uyan. Uyan is not going to be a pushover. And so Kinnick Barbosa has to think twice before throwing it into turn 1.
Hall over the back of Askinis, and we have a few battles now. Ahmed Abdallah still on the back of Stoll. Now we're going to go through Degna and look at the hairpin. He is definitely the faster car, but he just can't find a way through right now. Like you said.
Mistake from Stoll. That'll do. Ahmed Abdallah is going to get through on the inside. No hesitation at all there from Ahmed Abdallah. He twitches a little bit under braking, but he's able to get the car straight and narrowed without too much of a twitch on the acceleration. So Ahmed Abdallah picking up the pieces there from the mistake from Stoll. That'll do nicely. Meanwhile, we look with Kinnick Barbosa, who is now tucked up behind Vermeulen and Uyan. So Uyan into 14th place. Vermeulen is going to cause a little bit of an issue there as they come through up the top of the crest, up towards Spoon Curve again. Could be an opportunity for Vermeulen to try and get on the inside of John Uyan. Oh, he's just not close enough to take that bigger risk. Meanwhile, Kinnick Barbosa clearly feels like he's got a fast car underneath him. We know how fast he was in qualifying. So Kinnick Barbosa just charging his way back. Look how much speed he carries out of Spoon Curve as they go down the straight and actually onto the grass. Whoa. There goes Vermeulen. That's going to cost him some momentum, but Kinnick Barbosa is not going to throw it up the inside of 130R. We've got Guy Sever and John Uyan, the two Jaguars in front of them, and they're actually running slowly. Oh, that's always going to be a problem.
Cow.
And a big shunt. That's race over for all three of them. That's Sever and Uyan go off there with Vermeulen. So I'm afraid that's game over for Vermeulen for sure. He's going to have way too much damage. Let's have a look at that again, because the two Jaguars were in front. This is on board from Vermeulen. See, he just got a little bit too close to the Jag, and that was enough. And I think that unsettled the Jaguar, because then you see the two Jaguars together off the circuit. I think that unsettled Uyan, and he just drifted into the back of Guy Sever. Way too much damage for Vermeulen, and his race is definitely going to be over. He'll come straight into the pits, but I don't really see that car coming back out onto the track again. Big shunt for Vermeulen.
Yeah, that was a bit of a moment. I couldn't quite see, but there was definitely, it was into the braking for whenever I switch back to the looking at gaps, Uyan is in the thick of a battle, so it just catches my eye. I'm not playing father-son favoritism here. It's just whenever I look at the timing thing, Uyan's name is red because he's next to cars. But yeah, now he's back with Angelides. He's definitely had a rough go of it.
Yeah, Uyan losing a lot of time, which is very unfortunate, but at least his car is still operational. I've just got a sneaky suspicion there that, Vermeulen was going for a move that was ambitious at best. He just caught the right rear quarter of Uyan's car, and because Uyan's car was unsettled, he had nowhere to go but to drift into the sister car of Guy Sever. So a big problem. Vermeulen was very unlucky there, but perhaps very ambitious to go for a move with very little runoff to play with. And when you just get the tiniest bit of contact, you haven't got any chance at all to catch that. So Vermeulen is well out of contention. Borman is your leader, 11.2 ahead of Jason Whitehead, then Dan Kirby, And it is Smith in 4th position ahead of Wouter de Bruin and Ahmed Abdallah, who has now climbed his way up to 6th position. Then we've got Hall, Stoll, McCurdy and Overton in the top 10 from Askinis and Barbosa, who has crept his way back up into 12th position. Prodan out of the race. Vermeulen is still showing as competing in the race, so he is still there or thereabouts. He's into the pits to repair the damage, obviously, and there goes Hall, makes his way past Stoll into 7th position. So a good recovery drive from Hall as well after his couple of moments out on the circuit. McCurdy now following in the wheel tracks of the Sauber Mercedes of Stoll. So we're going to have some fascinating battles from these drivers as they continue. They go through the S's, sweeping in up towards Denyer, and Stoll, a little bit of a wobble. McCurdy almost used that as an invitation to get by. So things could have been very easy going for him there. And as they go through Denyer, he puts 2 wheels on the grass, just manages to get the Peugeot slowed down in time.
Yeah, very, very aggressive. Stoll is you know, sort of sliding backwards after that Abdallah pass was off a little bit of a mistake, and now he's just going losing more places than he's gaining right now as people are starting to catch up to him, although he does still have, you know, the good car in the straights.
So this is the battle between Askinis and Barbosa. Kinnick Barbosa has had plenty of overtaking opportunities given and snatched away over the course of this race already, and we're only on lap 9 of 41. This race is already flying past in very quick motion, so great competitors out there and great racers still to show their hand. Wait till we get to the pit stops, because then things are really going to get interesting. Kinnick Barbosa flashing the blues and twos down the straight towards the 130 yard to try and distract his opponent up in front, but Kinnick Barbosa needs to get a little closer to Askinis before that actually works. We're yellow in sector 2, so somebody's had an off there, and that's unfortunate. So, oh, that is a big off. That is Dancourt, I think, isn't it? No, it is. It's Oscar Dancourt. Oh, and that's caused a spin for the leader. Bowman spun, trying to get out of his way. These two Porsches have come together. Dancourt's gone into the wall. Now watch as Dancourt recovers, because Ben Bowman, the race leader, has absolutely nowhere to go here. Look, Dancourt has recovered. He's not even looking to see what's coming. There is Ben Bowman, the race leader. He's got to stand on it, and Bowman swaps ends.
Oh my goodness. He didn't hit, but yeah, absolutely. He had to stamp on the brakes with nowhere to go.
So Bowman's lead has dropped from 11 seconds to 3 seconds, and now he's desperately trying to avoid more drama. He's going to come up to these two cars again, Dancourt and Nielsen Vestergaard. Nielsen Vestergaard lets that move go through, and you know, if Bowman could shake his fist at Dancourt, I'm sure he would, because it's only sim racing, so he won't see it, but that was as blatant a massive stoppage from Bowman's point of view as humanly possible. And you can see in the background, Jason Whitehead is there or thereabouts. So he was very lucky not to lose the lead there, Ben Bowman, as that very nearly caught out the race leader. And Bowman, his lead is absolutely slashed, but he is so lucky that A, he didn't make contact, B, he didn't stall the car. He managed to keep it running, because restarting the car would have cost more time as well. So very scary moment for the race leader, Ben Bowman. His gap is down to 3 seconds, but hey, he's still leading for the moment.
Yeah, and you know, at worst, he got like a little bit of scrubbing on his tires with the spin, but if the car is still clean, then he can resume running that pace as soon as the tires cool off. So, yeah, lucky to get away with that from Bowman. Well spotted by you that it did have that interference, and yeah, that was the yellow in Sector 2, obviously, and yeah, definitely needed a yellow for that situation.
Certainly did. Now, here's Angelidis chasing after Meyer. So Meyer, as they go through the 130 yard, now, has he got space to make this move? No, you see, he did have the speed, but he just thought, you know what, into the chicane, that is way too big a risk. He bailed out of the throttle. He's actually bailed out of the throttle a little too much there, because John Huyan in the Jaguar now has a run on George Angelidis in the Lucky Strike Mazda. So he's got to step on the pace a little bit more. As into the pits, we've got one of the Porsches in, on board with John Huyan in the Jaguar.
Yeah, he doesn't have the straight line speed anymore. I think that...
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, his rear wing is maybe forked or something, as Angelidis gets a little bit sideways ahead of him, though.
This is almost four-wheel drifting from the group seats. Look at that, Angelidis, the back end wanting to overtake the front in every apex. It's not just one-sided. The car is absolutely snapping away. That's pure wheel spin, the car wanting to snap away. George Angelidis just riding the back twitch of that car as John Huyan gets a little bit closer to Angelidis as well. Coming up to the double right apex of the Denia curves. Look at that. That's very nearly rallycross from George Angelidis, the back end kicking out. Goodness me. He's able to get control of it as we're yellow in sector 1. So somebody having a little bit of a moment. Oh, whoops. That is Stoll. So Stoll's gone off at the run up to the bridge. So Stoll goes wide and lets McCurdy go through. Meanwhile, that's a Jaguar getting out of the way. This is
James Andrew.
It is James Andrew just getting out of the way there. Now, what happened to him? Oh, that's what happened to him. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, that is James Andrew just drifting off the road, hitting the wall and then rejoining. So a couple of moments there for James Andrew, unfortunately. So he's got himself into some hot water there. So hopefully he'll be able to recover and go for a fairly reasonable position out there on the circuit. But it is tricky. Drivers are just falling off the road here at Suzuka. And it's becoming a massive problem for the competitors out there. 11 laps completed. And still back to racing there. This is a replay. Let's have a look. This is how Andrew lost it. We've got a Sauber off in the background. And James Andrew is about to wash out in the S's, I think. He's just come through. There's a car in front of him. Has he gone for an overtaking move that isn't there? He just got a little bit too close to the rear. And the car drifts onto the grass. The problem is there, you're always going to hit the wall at that speed, even if you scrub off a little bit of acceleration. So we're back to live pictures again. James Andrews still going, trying to catch up to Carmen and shake off Miller, who is 0.8 of a second back, although Miller is now into the clutches of Max Petrovsky. Here we go again for Koenig Barbosa, and he's going to get alongside Stoll, but Stoll gets more acceleration off the turn. So Koenig Barbosa was just a little bit hesitant on the acceleration up to the hairpin. Oh, I thought Askinis was going to make a bit of a miss braking there. I thought he was going to miss his braking point completely and skew up the inside of Koenig Barbosa. That is not quite how it ended up playing out. So McCurdy in P9, Stoll is 1.3 back, Koenig Barbosa within a second, Askinis within a second, Miller likewise, and with 30 laps to go, still plenty of racing to play out here at Suzuka.
And Abdallah is now all over the back of De Bruyn, so Abdallah continuing that recovery drive has now caught up to P2 in the pros. But Stoll is just continuing to be in the thick of it. We got a gaggle of 6 cars here going through 130R, and of course the straight line differential between these guys is crazy. As Barbosa has a look to the inside, he's gonna back out of it, but now he's being hounded by Askinis behind, who is then being hounded by Miller as they all Constantina up into triangle.
See, this is what's fantastic about these cars on this track. The limit of adhesion is so narrow. As we've got a car into the pits there. Oh, goodness me, Stoll and McCurdy very nearly came together there. And Koenig Barbosa is now going to get a run at Stoll. Yellow in sector 1, so that's what we're about to approach by the look of things. Good recovery drives from the likes of Stoll and Koenig Barbosa. Are they about to approach the scene of this issue in sector 1? Koenig Barbosa getting very sideways there as he tries to make his bid on Stoll. Stoll is just placing the car everywhere Koenig Barbosa puts his. So a very tricky battle between these two. Koenig Barbosa clearly with the Peugeot seems to have a little bit more confidence in the car, so he can throw it in. Oh, I thought he was going to commit into Denia there. Goodness me, Koenig Barbosa really going for it. As up in front, we've got a slower car. That might have been the cause of the yellow flags. So that is Nielsen Vestergaard. Oh, a big wobble from Stoll. He nearly lost himself the place there from Koenig Barbosa, who just has a little bit more work to do.
Yeah, Barbosa obviously has the pace through sectors 1 and 2. Oh, and Barbosa almost ran into the back of that McDonald's car that was slowed ahead, and it was the cause of the yellow. We didn't quite see what happened, but Barbosa couches right back up. But now Stoll is going to have his advantage here, down to 130R and through into T1. So Barbosa needs to make the move maybe at the hairpin or something, because Stoll just is going to have the car, the car with the better straight line speed for here. Look at the distance he's put on Barbosa, over 1.1 seconds as they hit triangle. But Barbosa's all over the back of him through the rest of the lap. So this is that delta between the two types of cars, the two manufacturers, and those pros and cons of your car choice. We're seeing it play out here with Stoll and Barbosa.
Absolutely. The Sauber Mercedes rapid in a straight line, but there's way more mechanical grip. And that's Stoll getting past McCurdy, I think, isn't it? Oh, no, that's one of the slower Peugeots. My apologies. No, it is McCurdy. I was right the first time.
It
McCurdy
was,
got a bit of a twitch. He got a twitch out of the previous corner. And so now McCurdy splits them. Stoll is already trying to go through the traffic. I think that's Vermeulen in front of them, isn't it? After his... Oh, no, sorry, that is...
McCurdy got caught up and he's off.
He did indeed. He drops it. Now, that is... now, who is that in front of them? I think that's Oscourt after his earlier problem. Oh, no! Kinnick Barbosa, they absolutely sideswipe the back marker, and McCurdy is going to pick up the pieces here, side by side with Kinnick Barbosa. They bang wheels, and they bang wheels again, and they're both going to go off the road. The Peugeot's tangle.
Oh my God! There was no room there to cut back in. He wanted to get back in behind him. They were all getting a little bit impatient behind the lap car, the Lucky Strike lap car. They all got a little bit impatient. Obviously, Stoll got stuck behind him, and they all just concertinaed behind him and tried to go for gaps as they thought they would appear. They're all competing for the same bit of road, and there was no road when that Peugeot cut back across.
No, indeed. Oh, bitter disappointment for Kinnick Barbosa and McCurdy there. The two Peugeots synchronized spinning, essentially, as they come up towards the Denyer curve. What a shame. Meanwhile, this is James Andrew having a nice little battle here with Bevan and Miller. So it is Jerry Chen who is a few seconds up the road from them in the Flying Kiwi car. You can see that out in front. There is James Andrew in the yesteryear's Jaguar, just trying to pace himself and get an opportunity. A bit of a twitch there from Bevan. So there could be an interesting charge up the drive for James Andrew. Can he skate in? Just protecting the inside line, using the karting line there, Bevan, to make sure he can get through.
He got tagged by Miller, and then Miller stomped on the brakes, but Andrew did get a little bit of a tag, and that's why Miller's dropped back now.
Yes, indeed. Miller basically had to get on the brakes there. Oh, and a spin! That's the Mazda! Colliding with the Peugeot, and the Jaguar nearly gets connected up with it. So, all sorts of problems. And that's Angelidis having to take avoiding action. He actually rumbled over the curbs there. So, was that McCurdy in more problems? I think it was. So, this is Angelidis. He runs deep. So, Ouillan's going to get past him. That's Maya. Now watch what happens up in front. There's a spin for the Peugeot of McCurdy, and everyone essentially from this point on is taking avoiding action. And Angelidis actually ends up nudging the barriers on the way out there, the tyre barriers. But that was a mistake from McCurdy. He spun in the road, and that essentially meant that everybody had to take avoiding action with not a lot of road to play with.
There's there's so many cars on track, and they're so loose and everything, so any spin at a wonky spot just causes absolute mayhem for everyone approaching.
Indeed it does. Right, the pit stops have started. We've got Moynet in, we've got Gilles Lalonde in, and we've got Oscar Dancourt in as Angelidis drifts off the road, as Borman and Whitehead are now just 0.3 of a second apart on the racetrack. Angelidis managed to catch that and tucks back in behind the similar Mazda, but this is the battle for the lead here as the leaders are coming up to lapped traffic. So there is Whitehead, only 0.7 of a second back now from Ben Borman. And this is how tricky it is to run in the traffic. Yellow in Sector 2 up in front of them. But Abdallah is the first big name to pit in. So he's decided, having got all the way up to 5th place past Wouter de Bruin, Ahmed Abdallah is the first big name to make a pit stop. 15 laps into this race, so either it's going to be one very long stint to the end, or there could be a second stop before the end of this one. But certainly the Group C cars pushing their absolute limits here as Ahmed Abdallah runs in 8th position. And Barbosa there comes into the pits as well, I noticed. So Kinnick Barbosa brings the Peugeot in. Ahmed Abdallah, that looks like he's going for tyres.
Yeah, it's a long stop. Barbosa missed his lane by a little smidge there. She goes side by side through Spoon with Bevan and Miller. Miller gets the move done.
Indeed he does, and now he's going to hustle in behind Jerry Chen. He can get the slipstream and actually make the move into the chicane if he's got his skates on, up through the 130R. So Bevan caught out. James Andrew will want a little piece of this as well in 20th position. And look at that! So much speed around the outside from Miller. He absolutely stonks around the outside of Chen and then loses it. Then he loses it. He washes out through the S's, gets back on the road in front of Chen. Chen gets on the brakes. Bevan takes the gift around the outside. That was carnage. But what a move from Miller initially.
Andrew just says, oh, to heck with this. I'm going in the pits. You guys figure it out. I'll see you next lap.
Oh, dear. I think that was discretion being the better part of valor there. Do you know what? I'm not getting my car bent for anybody. As into the pits comes Whitehead from 2nd place. Now, that's interesting. He's decided to blink first. So Whitehead comes in, as does Kirby. So Whitehead and Kirby, the men who were 2nd and 3rd, both decide to come in. Now, Miller will be spitting fumes here because he's just pulled off one of the greatest overtaking moves you can ever make as Jerry Chen spins. Chen spins, loses the car, and Borman was in amongst all that. Now, did Borman make it through? Yes, he
Borman's
did.
good
Thank
to
goodness
go.
for me. Thank goodness for that, because for my money, he was going to lose out there with Miller. But you've got to feel for Miller, the greatest overtaking move in the history of VWSC 1991, and he chucks it away a quarter later to destroy the glory of that move, as Borman now gets underneath Bevan to lap him. So Ben Borman still keeping it out in front. Hall is in, so is De Bruin. So there is Hall in the Lucky Strike Mazda.
Kirby, sorry.
Sorry, that is Dan Kirby, having made his pit stop already. So getting out onto the circuit again. Now, where is Whitehead in comparison to everybody? He's got out in 4th place behind Smith and Overton, who have yet to pit. And that is about a minute behind Borman, I would say. So obviously it's going to be a particularly interesting pit stop for Ben Borman when he decides to make a pit stop. Will he go early or will he go later? But certainly Whitehead has got exactly what he wants, a bit of clear track.
Those guys pretty much all took tires as well. Their pit stops were about 69 seconds and 70 seconds. And that would be 50 seconds for fuel, 20 seconds for tires. So maybe 49 seconds for fuel because it's not obviously quite empty. But yeah, these guys were taking tires. And you would expect that, I think, with the way everyone's sliding around and the
Oh my goodness, look at that traffic jam in the pits. Dear me. That's 4 cars trying to occupy 2 grid spaces.
Yeah, I don't know. Are they actually both getting service right now, or is one waiting?
Well, Askinis seems to think he's got a service in there.
Oh my!
I suppose. Well, I suppose considering we've got 34 cars out on track now. Thank goodness this isn't an electronic unsafe release, because he crossed the white line there to get back out onto the circuit. And for my money, you should stay to the right-hand side of that white line until you filter through the first corner. So Askinis a little bit cheeky there as he pulls right across.
That is penalizable, though, as well. So we do follow those rules.
Oh, right. Review. So I'd say that Askinis might well be getting one then, because that was particularly cheeky as Barbosa hustles him behind Bevan, and I'm afraid he's assaulted him off the racetrack there.
Yeah, there's not a better word for it. It's just too much speed through it, Degna, and you gotta give the guy a head. You know, if he's slower than you gotta just give him some room. Like, he still has to take his line. So Barbosa will be getting an IR for that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, if that was a road accident, I'm afraid the lawyer of his insurance company would be sweating cobs, because that was definitely Barbosa's fault, and he's going to have to try and recover that one. Uyan and Overton in the pits, as is Jones. Also coming in is Maya, so there is the Jaguar in pit road now. And it's all going to come down to essentially now when Borman decides to pit, because Borman is still out there lapping traffic whenever he approaches it. But is he going to lose any more time than Whitehead has done? Whitehead is exactly 69 seconds behind Ben Borman. So Borman comes in. This is it. This is going to be between Whitehead and Borman. Has Whitehead jumped the gun a little bit here? Has he been able to make the undercut by pitting in a couple of laps before Ben Borman? And the other question here, Troy, is with these heavy fuel stops, can they run to the end on those fuel tanks?
It doesn't look like it, does it? I mean, I think they're going to be taking a splash at the end. I mean, Borman ran 18 laps, but one of those was a pace lap, and we have more than 17 laps to go. So if he's on the limit, he's going to have to either conserve fuel, or there's going to be some splashes with 3 laps to go, which could make things very exciting.
I have a feeling there's going to be splash and dashes at the end of this race. Smith comes into the pits as well. So here is Jason Whitehead, and he is racing down to the 130R to try and take the lead of this race. How good have his outlaps been compared to Ben Borman's in-laps? And just how much more speed has he been able to maximize out of his car on those fresher tyres? Because obviously he took tyres and fuel. So Whitehead may have just pulled a fast one here from Borman, but Borman is still stationary in pit road, 48.4, but he's at the end of the pit lane, so this is going to be close. As Borman gets out onto pit road, he's got to be careful not to trip the white line. Whitehead's tyres are up to temperature, so even though Borman is out first, Whitehead could still be able to get one over on Ben Borman here, with Borman trying to get his tyres up to temperature. Whitehead's already are, so we'll keep an eye on these two for this outlap, because Whitehead may be in a position to steal the lead away from Ben Borman, especially considering as well that not only is Borman on cold tyres, but he's got traffic in front of him, and Whitehead is absolutely determined, and he's on the knife edge here. He's got a chance to go for the lead as they come up through the left-hander. Borman goes left, so does Whitehead. There's going to be a little bit of a lean on it on the way to Denya. The black marker's got to get out of the way, but it's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Whitehead drifts off the road. Can he catch it out of Denya? Yes, he does. So Whitehead, that could have cost him the chance to go for the lead.
Yeah, and according to Borman's time, he actually did not take tires. So these two guys, seeing as they came out right next to each other, these two did not take tires. They are, of course, the two smoothest on the track in terms of their speed. They're hustling it now, but on the average lap, they're probably using less tires than everyone else is, despite being the fastest, because they have the car so well controlled. There's less sliding around from them. Not so much right now as White is trying to get up to Ben Borman, but through the course of the stint, they were probably sliding on average less than everyone else and elected not to take tires.
I mean, to be fair, Dan Kirby is now 16 seconds back from them, and he was only a couple of seconds behind them at the pit stop, so that would bear that out. Yep. So I don't think Kirby's made a mistake anywhere from what I can tell. We certainly haven't seen anything from him, so these two obviously deciding not to take tyres and going for race pace, but they are absolutely nose to tail. Whoever blinks first and makes the mistake is going to give the other one a massive benefit, as in front of them there is still battles going on for the Flying Kiwi. Borman is going to go down the inside here. No problem at all, but Whitehead gets caught out. He has to wait. So that was perfect tactics from Ben Borman, and that could pretty much put the kibosh on any undercut manoeuvres for the lead. And again, the back marker causing all sorts of problem. Whitehead just getting furious, and essentially he just swipes the car out of the way. Look, can't you see that I'm coming past you? He turns in on him and then decides, you know what, if you're going to be so stupid as to turn in on me, I'm going to commit to the apex and just shove you aside. He's got to be careful there, because that kind of maneuver, when you take the rule book into your own hands, you run the risk of the wrath of the stewards.
Yeah, that's probably going to be reviewed after the race as well. Whitehead getting a little bit impatient, and we have a car off, a Mazda off to the side. Whitehead, though, is leading this race. He is fighting Ben Borman for the overall lead, but he's got quite a big lead over De Bruyn in second in class. So Whitehead, we could have a little bit of a penalty here post-race. Usually in CMS, to not affect the race results as they stand, penalties are applied to the next race. So like no quali, or you have to do a drive-through at the beginning of the next race. So that lets it so that when the guys come across the line, their result stands. It's kind of an interesting rule, but it makes it so that as we see cars come across the line, that is normally where the results will stand, and then maybe next race they're not qualifying, and that's their penalty. But certainly Whitehead got a little bit impatient there with the lap car.
I've always liked that system, actually, because then essentially it means that whatever happens in the race happens in the race, but then you're obviously not going to get away with it, because the next race you're going to be severely compromised. So I've always actually liked that system, and I wouldn't actually mind it if too many real world series decided to adopt it as well. Chen and Miller having a nice little tussle, these two. A quarter of a second between them, and Miller really has got this car dialed in quite well. Jerry Chen in the Flying Kiwi, just trying to hold his line. He's had already a couple of love taps from drivers through this race. Now again, this is where the balance of performance is going to come into play. Jerry Chen, straight line speed. Miller in the draft. He's going to have a think. He knows how to drive these cars. So Miller's going to have to wait. And behind them, that is DiMarzo. So DiMarzo is actually catching up with them, although he has made a big mistake there on the exit of the chicane, having managed to catch up to them. He's just dropped it off the curbs. So that's a lot of time lost there, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty hectic there from Miller trying to hustle Chen, and he did have, I think Chen has the better car in the straight line, but he had the draft and he was still looking at it, so it'd be interesting as they go through the S's and into the hairpin. Does he have the advantage now? Yeah, it definitely does look like he has the advantage there. Look, in the S's, he's all over the back of them, maybe trying to go around the outside, just tuck in, be a little patient here, because on the last one, so you go right and then left here, this is where you want to really hustle your apex speed advantage, because then you're going potentially in a very aggressive move into Degna. He thinks better of it. He doesn't think better of it. He was looking at it. All right. In the end, he does. And then now here's where you want a really good kick off that little dip in the apex to maybe have a run into the hairpin. If it's not good, then you want to not compromise your hairpin entry. You want to just cut back to the other side of the road, get a nice tight apex, and then again, try again into spoon, kick it off the corner. So it's just about positioning for the next corner ahead. If you're not going to make it work this corner, bail out, get a better exit, and try again the next one.
If there's a racing driver, real or virtual, who says they don't like Suzuka, they're lying. Because even if it is a difficult circuit to master and they really feel frustrated by it, There aren't many circuits in the world that give a greater challenge to a race driver on the ragged edge. It is absolutely one of the toughest places in the world to go racing. And it's absolutely up there with the Spas and Le Mans and Nürburgrings of this world as one of the greatest racetracks on the planet. And this is why we're getting such great racing.
Oh, man.
Keeps up the road. Miller's going to make the move on the inside. Is that going to work as he turns in? He's actually got a little bit of a love tap from Bevan behind, and this is going to be messy on the exit. I'm afraid Miller's going to lose out to Chen and also to DiMarzo. DiMarzo got through there past Miller, and here's Kinnick Barbosa having a bit of a love battle there with a little bit of a love tap from Bevan. So Kinnick Barbosa trying to split them as they go down the straight. Bevan is not playing ball with Kinnick Barbosa at all. Barbosa sweeps across around the outside. Was there contact between them? I think there might have been. Where's Kinnick Barbosa gone? Where's Barbosa gone? He suddenly disappeared. There he is. So I'm afraid Kinnick Barbosa did not leave enough room for the back marker that he was lapping. Either that or he's going to say, well, Bevan just shoved me off the road. Now, how do you call this one?
So he's to the inside of the car, he's racing, and there's a car on the inside of him. That car on the inside, I mean, was truly there, but when you're splitting 3 wide, going into T1, and everyone's looking...
I mean, surely you know the risk you're taking when you're going to go 3 wide and round the outside of a back marker that's in its own battle. I mean, I'm not trying to say that, and Kinnick Barbosa, as he recovered onto the circuit, even spun it again. Frustration
he's having a rough race, isn't he? I mean,
yeah, he really is.
It's just one thing after another, and that's just making him more and more frustrated. Potentially!
Contact in front! Now that is the Nissan. That's the Nissan gone around.
Is that?
Now, who was that in the middle of the pack there? That wasn't Whitehead, but it was definitely one of the... Oh, and we've had an issue for James Andrew as well. James Andrew has stopped at the chicane. So let's see if we can have another look at it, or has it already gone, the incident? But certainly... No, the incident's gone, but certainly a couple of drivers caught up in that one. And Miller, unfortunately, has now dropped all the way down to P26 as a result of that. So we've had a couple of moments there. There is DiMarzo closing up on Jerry Chen.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell what that Nissan, who that was. We obviously have a lot of Nissans in the stock livery.
Whoops.
Oh, whoopsies.
Yeah, that didn't go great for DiMarzo, and he's going to lose it on the tank snapper. Bevan's going to get through, and he's going to have Hall right underneath him. Hall's not going to be particularly happy about the way he's been cut off there, as into the pits comes Bevan. So Bevan decides to dive in, and Vermeulen is in the pits there as well. So this will be the last pit stop for certain drivers who may have decided to come in a little earlier, and then they'll just decide, you know what, things are getting a little scary. Let's get out into daylight. Let's get into clear air. And then we can finish on the tyres that we put on, or finish on the fuel load that we put in, because this is going to be enough fuel if they take fuel at this point to get to the end of the race, I think. So at 22 of 41, we are halfway home. And if you come into the pits and fuel at this point, then you are looking okay, as Hall finally manages to get on the inside of DiMarzo to put a lap on him. But very interesting stuff between the drivers in this particular gaggle. At the moment, it is still Bowman and Whitehead from Kirby. Here's the continuing adventures of Kinnick Barbosa. It actually sounds like a swashbuckling adventure, and it's definitely going that way at the moment, isn't it, for Kinnick Barbosa, as he runs in underneath John Uyan, and he's caught him up to the tune of 0.4 of a second, with Hall another 7 seconds up the road. But Kinnick Barbosa is doing his best to have a go at John Uyan.
Yeah, who's also had his own, excitement in this race. Let's go see if we can go on board with Barbosa, maybe.
He's going
Looks
to have a
to
go.
the outside of Spoon.
Now, if he can hold this off, that would be impressive. He twitches out. Yeah, there's no way Uyan's going to let that one happen. Barbosa being incredibly ambitious around the outside of Spoon curve. I mean, fair play to him. I mean, this is a bit like the continuing adventures of Chicken Digby Caesar. This is excellent stuff from Kinnick Barbosa. He's going to have a go into 130 out. Go on, then.
Yeah,
oh my word, he leant on it. Very good from Kinnick Barbosa. That's more like it.
That's more like it, yeah. That is more like it. Oh, we have, I think was that one of the Porsches going 2 wheels over the curb in front of him. So Barbosa will be able to put the pace on it. He's, of course, in the Purist. Trying to knock on the door of a podium, but now after his rough first 20 laps, he's obviously in the thick of it. And he'll be a little bit down. Uyan is 4th in class, despite the ridiculousness of his race. Hall and De Bruyn quite a bit up the road ahead, of course, but then an absolutely massive gap up to Whitehead first in the pros.
Yes, indeed. The big difference between the pro and the stick shift, I like to call them, the stick shift class, of course, the driver's really going for it. And obviously Borman still leading that class and the race overall. This is Stoll versus Miller. Miller's had his own fair share of adventures, as has Stoll in this one, of course, as well. They're still just outside the top 10. Miller taking a fairly wide trajectory to get a little bit more speed out of it. Here's Overton, a very quiet race, actually, for Overton by all counts. But he's kept himself in the mix. He's there with Leodis Askinis, who is running in 10th position at the moment. He's had his own fair share of problems out there. But yeah, Leodis Askinis having a very interesting battle so far. And the competitors definitely having an exciting one out there. Here's Stoll battling Miller. Miller on the acceleration coming off the turn again.
And these guys are actually catching the Overton battle just ahead. So the four of them are pretty near each other on track, 2 versus 2.
Yes, indeed. So this is going to come down to who is going to get the best of the late braking moves out of this one. Look at how easy the car is to wash. Miller sees an opportunity there on Stoll, leans into the inside, dives in, and forces Stoll to back out of the second part of the apex.
Stoll's got the better car than on the straights. Stoll's going to look back on it into 130R.
Indeed he is. He's going to get there before they even turn in. So Stoll able to get back past Miller, but into the corners once again. Miller in the Nissan is going to have another opportunity down into the braking zone. And Stoll washes out. Nissan's Miller's gone with him. Miller's gone with him. Oh, that's disappointing. Stoll lost it, and that's so easy to do when the car in front goes. You're desperately trying not to go and join him at the scene of the accident, but unfortunately, that's exactly what Miller's done.
Yeah, you get stuck chasing a distance behind the car, and it's even trickier when you have such pace differential as these guys do in this series. And yeah, it's just hard not to follow someone off. It takes a lot of mental discipline to focus on your braking markers, not the car ahead. And it's so typical that when the car ahead misses their braking marker, the car behind follows suit.
So here is the order on lap 25 out of 41. This race has absolutely flown by, but there's still a lot more drama to come. Borman is leading by 6 seconds to Jason Whitehead. Dan Kirby in third position at the moment from Smith, Abdallah, and Wouter de Bruin. Then it is Hall in 7th place. Oh, and there is Kinnick Barbosa. More problems for Kinnick Barbosa, I'm afraid, as he's dropped it on the exit of Denya. How's he done that? Now, that is one of the flying Kiwi cars in front of him. Now, has he done this on his own? Yep. He's drifted off the curb, powered on the throttle, and I'm afraid, Kinnick, that was all your own doing, mate.
Yeah, definitely. His car's been in the wars today, man. It's been a rough race for Barbosa. One of the coolest looking cars, though. To be honest, it's like a mural almost. It's very.
I mean, it's almost like he's racing in Super GT. Look at it. That's almost like a cartoon anime manga livery that he's put on the car. But it looks absolutely awesome as he closes up on the sister Peugeot. This one is McCurdy. So Barbosa is actually taking a very tight line there. What is Barbosa doing? He's running a very odd line as he comes through. I think he's carrying damage. So he's going to be He's going to be making his way to the pits.
His car's, just got to be just absolutely screwed at this point, in terms of how much contact he's had with other drivers, contact with the wall. I wouldn't be surprised if he ducked into the lane because he doesn't look comfortable at all as the pusher goes off in front of him.
Oh.
But he doesn't fit.
He doesn't fit. Obviously, McCurdy dropped it on the curb and he thought, well, actually, maybe I can make an overtaking move after all. So he does get through into 11th position. Then Kinnick Barbosa. His swashbuckling adventures around Suzuka continue then in 11th position. Amazing stuff from him. He's brilliant entertainment. I'm not sure that's the kind of entertainment he wanted to give us, though. As into the pits comes Ben Borman. Right now, that's the race leader, and he's come in with 15 laps to go. So I think he wants to avert the splash and dash, or maybe the tyres have just got to the end of their lifespan.
Okay, so that's interesting then. So did he actually take... No, he took a full fuel load. He was
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy. It's so difficult to tell. So we'll see. He's already on 30-odd seconds on his pit stop. So was it maybe a splash and tires and not a full fuel load? And now this is the full fuel load?
Could well have been, because now we're into 43, 44, 45 seconds for the stop for Borman. I think it's going to stop about 48 seconds here as he continues on. Oh, it's going to go longer. 51 for Ben Borman then. Okay, so that does suggest a full fuel load going on board.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a similar time to his previous stop. We wouldn't need 2 full fuel loads, so one of them must have been a partial and tires, and the other one whichever one it was a full fuel load. So he's had a short stint in the middle, basically.
Well, that throws down the gauntlet to Jason Whitehead, doesn't it? It's like, well, this is what I'm going to do. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I really wish we had data coming off the cars about, you know, what they were doing in their pit stops and what tires they're on right now. As Borman actually is going to come out in some traffic. He came out right behind Walter de Bruin.
So this could be a short-term gain, short-term loss, long-term gain situation for Ben Borman, but he is indeed right behind de Bruin as one of the Mazdas has dropped it out of the denier. So a bit of a problem there as we now watch Overton trying to close up on Uyan, who is in traffic at the moment. Yellow in sector 1, as there is Ben Borman, still trying to get on tight behind Walter de Bruin in the Porsche 962, and we watch Overton getting closer and closer to Uyan in the S's, a very easy part of the course to wash out. They've got a slow kart in front, so that's not going to be particularly easy, and there's enough room to squeeze a car in, so that's what Overton's going to try and do. Uyan has no response. They bang wheels. Uyan will think that's particularly cheeky, but to justify it, he then skates off the road and rejoins alongside, guess who? Kinnick Barbosa, and he manages to drop it again. And that's a big loss of time there for Overton. McCurdy's going to get through as well as he goes up the hill. So a big problem for Overton. He got a cheeky move there on Uyan, but unfortunately, as far as Uyan is concerned, justice was quickly served.
Yeah, it's they were door banging all the way down, and the thing is, they're actually teammates in this series, Uyan and Overton. So the teammates go door banging into Degna, and Overton loses out. I think Uyan obviously was just stuck behind the lap traffic.
Well, Smith comes into the pits as well, so that would suggest that this was always what the leading cars needed to do. So when is Whitehead going to come in? Yeah,
that's true. So they had this in the strategy already. Smith and Ross. No, that's not right. Borman and Smith had this in the plans the whole time to do this short stint in the middle. It's almost like DTM style of have the pit window in the middle of the race, you know, and take your 2 stops there. So. As a Hall is going to go around the outside of Smith.
Take a bow. That is one heck of an overtake from Hall. Oh my word, that really took some stones to pull off around the outside of turn 1. Meanwhile, Barbosa and Uyan, just a little bit of rubbing. I didn't think it was quite the same thing in Group C as it is in Days of Thunder, but apparently Rubbins Racing's here too. So a bit of a moment then for... Kinnick Barbosa, how many times more are we going to say that in the next 14 laps? So Borman trying to come around the outside of Walter de Bruin, and he gets the job done. That was nicely handled then, and obviously that's for position, but Borman didn't want to lose too much time stuck behind Walter de Bruin, so it took him a lap and a half to get the job done, but rather do that and preserve the life of the tyres than do it in a bit of a lackadaisical fashion. So a good run there from Ben Borman. He's up into P4 with Whitehead still to pit, as are Kirby and Abdallah.
Yeah, so it's very interesting to see how the strategy plays out. It wasn't the best start to this last stint, was it? Because he got stuck behind a rather pacey De Bruin, who is second in pro. So, you know, De Bruin's not going to just drive off the road for him. Yeah, we'll have to see how the strategy plays out. White, obviously, I think they have the Purist lead, you know, sort of covered. Whitehead has absolutely stamped his authority over a minute ahead of De Bruin in the pros. So it's quite an interesting one, as actually McCurdy is definitely in the thick of it. I think Barbosa's gone off again, because now Barbosa's behind Uyan and McCurdy.
Yes, indeed. So these guys are basically just taking it in turns to pick up the lead of the fight, then drop it, then pick up the lead of the fight, then drop it, then pick up the lead of the fight, then drop it again. As McCurdy nearly washes out completely in the 130R. That was scary. And Uyan is able to run at the head of this little train for a while. Kinnick Barbosa again gets close. They've got this slow car in front. Oh, and Uyan lost it on the exit. Uyan loses it on the exit, so it's his turn to drop it. Kinnick Barbosa now trying to get up the inside of McCurdy. They bang wheels, and Overton is going to pick up the pieces if they're not careful. So that up in front of them is Askinis trying to get past one of the flying Kiwi cars. So they are trying to catch up to Askinis. But McCurdy now 8th, Barbosa 9th, and Overton 10th. And Barbosa really getting hungry in behind McCurdy once more as the 2 Peugeots bang wheels. And now the Jaguar is coming in for a bit of playtime. Oh, and a spin in front of them!
He tagged the lap car. McCurdy tagged the lap car. Barbosa bangs wheels with Overton behind, who is caught up because of all of this mayhem. He had his own mayhem a few laps ago, but he's used the carnage ahead to catch up as Barbosa goes around the outside.
Oh, no! They've washed out!
And Overton's going to collect him as well.
Well, McCurdy just about escapes it, but Overton and Barbosa do not. Overton is actually the one that gets away with it in the best shape, but Barbosa drops now behind Uyan, Overton and McCurdy. So big problems.
And Barbosa almost into the back of McCurdy. McCurdy, was he waiting or having a problem? He might have been trying to wait, but in doing so, right on the racing line, almost had Barbosa spear into the rear of him. And
right,
Whitehead
just pitted, by that, I think. Whitehead, I think, might have just pitted.
Oh, yep,
Abdallah
he did.
has definitely pitted. So Whitehead has come in and out again.
61 seconds.
Yeah,
so,
well, look at that. Borman is 10 seconds behind him.
Yeah, so Whitehead, with 61 seconds, is probably tires and a splash. Tires and not a full fuel load, I would imagine, because it would be 50 seconds for a full fuel load. And if he's at 60 with this... It's so hard to tell, isn't it? They're all over the place.
I think Whitehead may have pulled a fast one here on Borman. Borman's gone the conventional route, and Whitehead's been a little bit experimental. Because if you remember, Whitehead was the one who came in first of the two of them.
Right.
In the first rotation, and then Whitehead has just decided to play out his strategy, but go just a little bit further than Borman the second time around, and he's actually gone a little bit more aggressive in terms of his pit strategy, as Abdallah is in, Uyan is in as well, and so is Kinnick Barbosa. He comes down pit road, and also I think we had Andrew in briefly as well, so there are 4 retirements: Petravki, Simeoni, Salmon, and Prodan, all retiring from the race. Incredible that we haven't had more, considering all the Flotsam and Jetsam that we've had around the circuit. Now, here is Smith in the Nookie Monsters Peugeot. We haven't really seen much of Smith in this race. He's kept himself to himself and runs there in P5. He could end up with a very tasty result if he just keeps it on the island.
Yeah, he has also, with the Borman strategy, has done his second stop already. Hall in front of him hasn't stopped yet. Neither has Dan Kirby, who is currently leading the race overall. So how does Dan Kirby slot back in when he eventually does take a stop? We only have 11 laps to go, so Kirby's going to be on a splash to the end, which is more of the strategy, we were kind of expecting in the beginning, 2 full stints and then a splash. Borman and potentially Whitehead as well have done this sort of split strategy where they're more even throughout the 3 stints. Yeah, it's very interesting to see the numbers as they come across, with their pits and what they're doing. I really wish we could tell if they were taking tires or not. I wish R Factor provided that insight. That would, answer a lot of questions, that we're seeing. And with some of the longer pit stop times, or lane times rather than pit stop times, is that because they're maybe missing their pit stall with this no speed limit in the pits, as we saw with that wide shot of the front straight and the pit lane at the same time? They're going very fast in the pit lane. They're going the same speed in the pit lane as the guys are on the home straight inside of them, so it's just this really, weird situation as McCurdy and Overton get into it, but Overton hits the lane.
Well, that's a very good point you make, of course, because what we haven't reminded people is that in the 1991 VWSC Historic Championship, the cars do not have a pit lane speed limiter. So they come down pit road at racing speeds and go into their garages, so that into their pit bays. So obviously that's something that the drivers... Oh, a spin behind them. That looked like Abdallah, I think. Abdallah just spun the car through the first corner. That's a big mistake from Ahmed Abdallah, and that is something he did on his own as well. He was not helped there, so Ahmed Abdallah just washed out through turn 2.
And he stalled it by the look of it as well. It took him a second to get going. Now the question is, Kirby is in now.
So with Kirby in pit road, where's he going to filter out? I would say he's still going to be ahead of Hall when the musical chairs all start. But look, there's the distance between Whitehead and Borman. It's 5.5 seconds. So Whitehead has actually lost a bit of time now to Borman. I would guess this is something to do with potentially the tyres or the fuel loads, as Whitehead drops it. You don't want to do that too many times, Jason. You've only got 4 seconds now over Ben Borman, so you cannot afford to drop it too many more times. I wonder if Whitehead's just taken the gamble to try and maintain track position, but Borman is on the more aggressive strategy in terms of being able to push the car to its limits. So Borman is there, but I think Borman may have the faster car overall for the last 11 laps.
I mean, just while we were speaking on it, he's took another 1.5 seconds out of Whitehead's lead through the S's. It's definitely racy. And now Kirby has actually come out ahead of Smith and ahead of Hall, but Hall actually has yet to do his second stop. So if we take him out of the equation, Kirby versus Smith, kind of gap are they looking at? About 11 seconds between the two of them for second in the Purist. So massive result for Kirby coming in to help the Lucky Strike team and bringing it home, potentially second or third.
Now that is a very good result indeed from Dan Kirby as McCurdy brings his car into the pits, the Peugeot from P6. So that's going to drop him back behind Angelidis, behind Abdallah. Oh, Angelidis comes in as well. So in fact, Abdallah is going to re-inherit 6th position. Meanwhile, Borman is still just taking it one lap at a time as Whitehead out in front continues doing a good job. 4 seconds clear of Ben Borman, but the Peugeot still running strong for Ben Borman as Whitehead just a few seconds up the road in the Nissan is just keeping it nice and tidy. You've got to be so careful. Tries not to trip over the McDonald's machine of Vestergaard. So he's obviously just got to try and keep himself out of harm's way there. Nielsen Vestergaard, the last of the runners on the track, by the way, with 10 laps to go. This is it. 10 laps remaining here at Suzuka. And it's going to be tricky to know if Whitehead can hold on to this from Borman. He's steady at 4 seconds, but he's keeping it fairly consistent.
Yeah, it does look like he had the better car in the straights, so now we'll see as they go through the S's, does that gap start to tumble? However, Borman is obviously stuck behind a Jaguar here as well. So the pace is actually gonna, yeah, pretty much stay as quo, even though, despite that, though, yeah, no, they're gonna stay about the same, but it would be curious to know what Borman could have done without the traffic in head. As he goes to Degna, they're pretty close, and that Jaguar's really not yielding to the blue flags at all, and that could be kind of peeving Borman a little bit because we've
got a spin there further back. Now that looks to me like one of the Mazdas, I think.
It was Carmen.
It
one
was
of the
Carmen,
Lucky Strike
yeah.
cars.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That was Carmen who dropped it, I'm afraid. So that is going to put him down the order. Meanwhile, Borman still hustling this Jaguar around the outside. Come on, don't you know who I am? I'm in second place. Get out of the way. And Borman finally manages to get it into Spoon Curve. But that would have been bitterly frustrating for the man who's lost a second stuck behind that Jaguar now.
Yeah, and so the curious thing then is what would have been if he had done that whole section without being stuck behind the Jag, because Whitehead has now stretched his lead to 6 over on the straights. I think Whitehead does have the better car in the straights, but Borman, where he had the advantage, he was stuck behind a lap car.
So now they come into the chicane at the end of the lap. Here is Meyer. We haven't seen much of Meyer. He's been having a great battle for most of the race with Guy Sever in the Jaguar as they run in 13th and 14th position, these two. So Guy Sever causing a few headaches here for Meyer, but the Coca-Cola car still pushing on. And
this is for the... Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off there. It's second,
no, it is. You're right.
Second in AM, is it? Or is it the lead in AM?
It is for the lead in the AM class. You're absolutely right. So
it's both. It's
Meyer.
first and second.
No, absolutely spot on. Yeah, this is for the lead in the AM category between Sever and Meyer. So it's a big battle going out on circuit between these two. They've kept it nice and tidy. Yellow flags in front of them. Oh, and that's white. James Andrew.
Yep. Andrew's spun it around. Sever goes pretty defensive on Mayer. We have a car coming out of the lane.
Toe, isn't he? Trying to break the toe. Oh, now that's a slower car coming out of the pits and crossing the white line apron again. So that could end up being a penalty. But Sever and Meyer, 0.3 of a second. Looks Sever getting out very wide. Meyer using that as an opportunity to try and hustle him as Hall finally makes his pit stop. So Hall comes in and will drop back behind Abdallah, I would think, by the time the pit stop is done. So still these two battle for the AM lead, and let's not forget, of course, that there's going to be an interesting challenge from behind them. From third place is all the way down in 22nd. That's DeMarzo. So DeMarzo looking good for an AM podium if he can keep it out in front of Bevan for the entirety of the rest of the race. But certainly Sever versus Meyer, very tricky between these two AM cars as they will battle for the victory. But just a little bit of a twitch there from Meyer. Now, if I'm Meyer, I'm going to let Kinnick Barbosa go. I'm not going to hustle him too much. Just let him go. Let him go after Sever. And then
Sever was actually... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when Sever gets held up by Kinnick Barbosa's wash, then he can try and make his own move.
Exactly, and Sever was actually feeling the pressure because even as the AM leader was blinking another car to get out of the way. So that's what we like to see. The AMs are mixing it up, and this is why the AM category exists, obviously, to be on track with the with the pros, and we don't put the AMs in a second server for this exact reason, to give them that, you know, on-track experience. Some of these guys are very experienced as well, but, you know, if they feel like their pace isn't quite there, then they drop to the AM category as well. So it is a self-placement, but this is exactly why it's here. But he feels it, you know, he feels the pressure, because he's in the lead of that class with P2 in class just behind, and it's all kind of kicking off ahead as Guy Sever Barbosa with that Porsche lap car off the side. This has given Sever actually a couple seconds lead through this traffic with Barbosa and the lap car, so he's definitely got a little bit of breathing room now. However, Borman now 1.7 seconds, 1.6 seconds behind Whitehead. So, as Barbosa dips down the inside of our AM leader, Borman is now, with clean track, very much reeling in Whitehead.
Yes, indeed. This is what we suspected might be the case, but the Peugeot definitely strong in qualifying, and it looks as though in race trim just as quick. There's Guy Sever, and he's let Kinnick Barbosa go. So that's actually helped him out, because he doesn't have to worry too much about what Kinnick Barbosa is doing. There's his main rival in the AM category. That is Meyer. So Meyer is trying to deal with this same Porsche that they were having problems with earlier on. Now here is Leodis Askinis running in the chase after the top 10. Angelidis is in P10 at the moment, Overton in 11th and Askinis in 12th, ahead of Kinnick Barbosa. So they've got about 8 seconds on the Peugeot behind them. So Leodis Askinis, the Lithuanian, still working very hard here as he tries to get his move, diving up on the inside there. And Andrew is back in pit road after what can only be described as another trip off. So Overton and Askinis still having their duel for 11th position, but that is behind Smith, who is out in 4th position at the moment. So Smith is currently on his own in P4, 16 seconds back from Kirby, but 3/4 of a minute ahead of Hall. So he's having a race on his own in 4th position, but that's still going to be a podium in class. So he can be very happy with himself there. But it looks as though it's going to be the pro category in front of the purist category on this occasion, unless Borman can close in. And he's only got a second to make up with 7 laps to run.
Yeah, and as Guinness is like getting onto the back of Overton and then dropping back a little bit, so it goes back and forward. However, here we go for the overall lead.
Yep, Whitehead has been caught right up by Borman. They get out away from the Akira Mistral car, getting out of the way. A little bit of a wobble from Whitehead. He's really feeling the pressure from Ben Borman now as they come off of the hairpin. They will fly through the right-hander. Borman is going to have so much of an advantage at this point of the course, but it will be the straight line speed where things will be neutralized again. Out through Spoon Curve. They lead in. Borman's got so much mechanical grip. The car is just planted to the road. It's a little bit more trippy for Whitehead, but now they're going to come down the straight, and Borman's going to have the slipstream. Yellow in sector 2 behind them, but now we're going to have an opportunity for Borman. He's really going to try and lead into the 130R. Will he make the move into the chicane? It's going to need some bravery from Ben Borman, but if there is one thing Ben Borman is, it's definitely brave into sector 3, and I think they're going to have a problem up to the chicane. Yes, indeed, there are yellow flags there. Who's parked it? Oh, now it is the McDonald's car that's gone off the road. Nielsen Vestergaard rejoining without causing an issue for the leaders. But now these two continue on their charge through. In fact, Nielsen Vestergaard actually peeled into the pits. So, Whitehead being caught by Borman. Another lap done, and there's only 6 left.
So stretches lead a little bit through the home straight, but now we'll see how Borman can do through the S's. No one in front of him except the guy he's chasing.
But let's see just how close this is going to get between Borman and Whitehead. You can see how close Borman is able to pull the car, but just watch the back end of Whitehead's car. Look how loose he carries it. It just snaps away on wheel spin. He's able to manage the front end though to stop the car from washing out. Then into Denya. Borman gets very close. I would suspect the first real attack is going to come up the hill here. Whitehead gets on the curve. This will be the opportunity Borman's looking for. Watch Whitehead. He'll pull the car to the middle of the road. That's exactly where he places it.
Yep, defensive from Whitehead. So he wants the overall lead, despite the fact that they're cross-class. This is what we love to see, isn't it? Despite the fact that they're cross-class, they want the overall lead. Maybe one of them does, and the other...
This isn't just a championship, is it? This is bragging rights. You want to prove that you're better than the purists.
Yeah, it's cross. Oh, Whitehead gets a little bit wide though.
There it is. He just drifts out wide of the spoon curve. Ben Borman doesn't even have to attack him. He's picked up the pieces beautifully, and Ben Borman takes the lead. But Jason Whitehead is not done yet.
Yeah, Whitehead's now going to have his. This is his moment. This is where he's better. That's a huge speed advantage into 130R. He's going to have some dirty air, but he keeps it on the road. Now, into the braking zone, he's going to have to go. He's so twitchy. You can see how twitchy it is on these onboards as they go over the curbs of Casino. How good is the run down to T1? Because, again, that's where White is going to have a little bit of advantage. If he can't stay with him through here, Borman will probably pull away through sectors 1 and 2.
Here we go, 5 laps to go, and he's gaining. He can't throw it up the inside for 1 and 2, but he's just got to stay with him through the S's. This is going to be the trickiest part of the course to stay with Ben Borman. Jason Whitehead really needs to step it up. Now, they've got traffic in front of them. That's going to help Jason Whitehead. It's not done yet. The Purist leader, Ben Borman, versus the Pro leader, Jason Whitehead. They want to win their classes, yes, but this is also about bragging rights. And of course, goodness, got better. Borman is held up by this back marker. There goes Whitehead. He gets through and he deals with the back marker in the same breath.
This, back marker causing issues for Borman. Again, Borman, without blue flag incidents, would have a very clean run under his belt. But it's the traffic that has caught out Ben Borman on multiple occasions, and he typically ends up having to stamp on the brakes rather than try to brave it, to kind of, skirt the needle or what have you. He just slams on the brakes and lets it all play out in front of him. He won't be happy with that, though. And that's, again, ruined his chance of pulling away from Whitehead through the S's. He got held up through the S's and then lost the place.
This race just keeps getting better and better. Whitehead is now going to try and hold it carefully through the spoon curve this time. And watch, as we ride on board with Borman, Whitehead is just going to accelerate away. There you go. The car just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Whitehead with so much straight line speed compared to Ben Borman. But here's where Borman's going to have the advantage. He can brake so much later than Whitehead. Look, Whitehead twitches under brakes. Borman's going to gain so much.
It's a good 20 or 30 meters later, it looked like, on his braking as well. I mean, that was a pretty good difference in braking. Whitehead, again, will have the advantage here. But yeah, you could see, as you were calling, with the car getting smaller and smaller up to 130R, despite the fact that Borman had the draft.
That's a very good point. And Borman here is now going to have the advantage. So now watch that car get bigger and bigger now, because with 4 laps to go, Whitehead is going to have a much less grippy car than Ben Borman. Borman's got mechanical grip. Whitehead's got pure straight line speed. So this gaggle between them on, of all circuits, Suzuka, it really is going to be interesting to see who's going to get the upper hand out of these two. Jason Whitehead or Ben Borman, with Dan Kirby half a minute back in third, looking good for a Purist podium and an overall podium as well. Smith, Abdallah, Hall, De Bruyn, McCurdy, Uyan and Overton. But this battle for the victory overall is absolutely addictive between the two class leaders. And look again, Borman getting so close to Whitehead, but he snaps over oversteer as he comes out of Denya and up towards the hairpin once again. So Borman getting close, Whitehead defensive.
Trying to look a little up the road, we have Nilsen Vestergaard, who has come out of the lane, and Walter De Bruyn a little bit ahead. So they're going through Spoon right now as these guys are leading up to Spoon. So we might have a little bit more traffic before this race is done.
So you're saying that it's Nilsen Vestergaard again who's in front of them?
Yes.
He was only in front of him. It was only in front of them about 3 laps ago. This is like Groundhog Day. They come out of the hairpin, out of Spoon, down the straight again. Nissan's going to pull a little bit ahead. But look, Borman's just a tiny bit closer, so he's got a little bit more slipstream to counteract it. They go through 130R. He's able to follow in the clean air. So now they come up to the chicane. But again, look, just so much later on the brakes than the Nissan. Yes, obviously you're going to get closer in the slower apex of the corner anyway. But this lap is going to be critical for Borman. Whitehead cannot afford a single error, and he's already had one too many.
Yeah, and they're now, Nilsen Vestergaard ahead is just now getting into the apex of T1. These guys are closing in on the number 30 car ahead.
It's been fantastic riding on board for this long, because you really do get to see the difference between these two cars in terms of how they handle. Borman's so much more glued to the road, as it were, but Whitehead with so much straight line speed that he can just kick on and power away down the straights. But you've got to get through these apexes cleanly to even set that up. So Whitehead definitely looking very weak here, as Borman is going to get a little bit more opportunity to climb up the hill. Watch them through Denya. Whitehead's got to be a little bit more cautious. Borman can be a bit more aggressive. He can attack, but he leaves a little in reserve. Now he closes up on the exit. This is where Whitehead's got to be careful. He drops it on the curb on the exit. Borman might get a run. But again, Whitehead just parks the car. Look at that,
Very
in the
defensive.
middle of the road. That's perfect from Whitehead.
very, very defensive, and now we have Nielsen Vestergaard to contend with ahead. He'll go a little bit off to the side, probably lift off the throttle a little bit. Doesn't look entirely stable there, so that would have given a few BPM on the heart rate for both of these guys as they go around him. That's clear on traffic. The next guy ahead of them is Walter de Bruin in 7th, well up the road. So between the two of them, he's right on the back of them, but now it's Whitehead's turn to stretch his legs.
Yeah, and he's going to be 3/10 clear, so that will be enough to stretch it out to about 6/10 by the time they get to 130R. But then in the 20 to 30 meter braking advantage, Borman will get that back again. This is a fascinating duel between these two, and it's going right to the wire. This is one of the best races we have had this season, as the two main protagonists, Whitehead and Borman, duel to the finish line. 2 laps to go, and it is absolutely anybody's between these two drivers. Whitehead has the speed, Borman has the mechanical grip, and it could go either way. 2 to go.
And we have such a massive gap to Kirby in third, 40 seconds back to Kirby. Ross Smith looking good for a podium in class, with then Hall second in the pros, and De Bruin 15 seconds behind him for the podium. And Uyan, despite the ridiculousness of his race, slots in 4th in the pros, and Barbosa, despite the ridiculousness of his race, is still 5th in the Purists.
Again, climbing up the hill. You're just waiting for the moment where one of them makes another error, because they both had their moments in this one, but they are absolutely on the knife edge. Both drivers' eyes are on stalks at the moment. Much cleaner exit out of Denya from Whitehead this time. And again, watch, he'll just move the car to the middle of the road. That means Borman can't go left, he can't go right, he can't dive it on the inside, he can't really try and find the outer trajectory. This is really well placed by Jason Whitehead. He knows exactly where to place the car to keep Borman at bay. McCurdy comes in for a splash and dash by the look of it, so he hasn't quite timed his pit stops to perfection. That's what can go wrong. Abdallah is safe in 5th position behind Smith, Hall in 6th position, then De Bruin, Uyan, Barbosa and Overton in the top 10. Now, this is closer than Borman has been for a while on Whitehead. Look, he's actually able to use the slipstream to a bit more of advantage this time. He could end up sending this up the inside into turn 1 if he's close enough. Certainly towards 130R, he is closer than he has ever been, but he's going to brake later than Whitehead. He can't send that up the inside. Maybe in the final chicane, in the final lap he will. But this is obviously a little bit too early. Right, they are still absolute stalemate. So out of the final turn and onto the home straight. 1 lap to go, and this will be where the VWSC 1991 race at Suzuka will be decided.
Yeah, it is fascinating to be on board with him, because you get a much better, visual of this difference between the two mechanical beasts that are underneath these guys. Obviously have, we see here through the twisties how close Borman can get. He's all over the back of them, and then you can just literally see the car get smaller and smaller, as you say, on the straights. It's been a great battle, and something that you don't see this severe of a delta in modern sports cars. They're just balanced a lot better, or a lot closer to be uniformly near each other, as very close through Degna. This could be the
get a great exit. Brett Borman will get a great exit this time. Whitehead is still going to hold the middle of the road. Borman is going to try and throw it up the outside now. He's got to try something. So he'll go from the outside, try and get the switch undercut, and he tries to come through. But again, Whitehead's car is just in the wrong place at the wrong time for Borman to make the action. Now he's got to be as large as possible in Whitehead's rearview mirrors. Here comes Borman, trying to make the bid up onto the inside of Whitehead. Now he comes through on the far side, tucking back in for another opportunity. Out through Spoon. Is there going to be a gap on the inside? No, there's not. He actually pulls in a little bit more throttle to try and counteract the slide. Now Whitehead's going to have a little bit more straight line speed, but this is all going to come down to the braking zone for the chicane. It's not done yet. Borman is a lot closer to Whitehead than he has been previously. Up to the 130R. Through the left-hander. Catching the curve, and I think Whitehead may just about have enough in the tank here. Borman's going to have one last-ditch effort. He tries to get as close to Whitehead as possible. Whitehead is going to need to control this on the acceleration. He's done that. Jason Whitehead has held off Ben Borman for almost half the second half of the race. Brilliant from Whitehead. He wins here at Suzuka in front of Ben Borman. What a duel that was. Amazing between Borman and Whitehead, but Whitehead is victorious.
Yeah, they both blink the lights over the line, and a little bit of a celebration. Really good stuff between these guys, and for most of that, I mean, they were the only guys on track near each other. Everyone had kind of spaced out a little bit. However, we do have a little bit of a battle between Jones and Chen to round out the last lap, but what a battle between Whitehead and Borman. And it was never gonna come to, extreme blows or anything, because they know that they're on, different classes and stuff, each for their class victory. But definitely you could tell they weren't Borman wasn't resting in second. He did want the overall lead. So very, very cool to see.
Terrific racing. Well, Jason Whitehead takes the pro win and the win overall. Borman in the Purist misses out by less than half a second in the end when they came across the line. Kirby will be third from Smith, Abdallah and Hall, but what a story that race gave us. Suzuka definitely delivering in the 1991 VWSC Historic Championship. That was absolutely magnificent. All the way to the finish line from the get-go. Who needs double stack starts? This place has got plenty of excitement from the single file rolling start. We had a lot of drama right from the first corner of the first lap. And this championship always seems to deliver in spades. Hall will get second in class. De Bruyn will get third in class in the pro category. And Chen does manage now to hang on in front of Jones to the line. So some great performances. And in the battle for the amateur class category, I'm fairly sure Guy Sever was able to hang it out there to finish up in front of Meyer, and he does in back by 3 places. So Guy Sever picking up the amateur class win as well in 13th overall. Great racing here from the VWSC 1991. And this man, Jason Whitehead, really soaking in the pleasure of cruising around the Suzuka circuit with Ben Borman. You really do know that these two, the best two out on the circuit, left nothing on the table, and they gave us a terrific show in the VWSC 1991 Historic. That was CMS Racing at its absolute finest, and everybody absolutely reeling from that race. Terrific stuff here at Suzuka. So Whitehead, Borman and Kirby, your overall podium. Whitehead just enjoying the moment as he comes in and absolutely deserving that victory. What a great drive from the Nissan. Let's take you through the results then after what has been a sensational battle out there. All provisional, of course. Jason Whitehead, Ben Borman and Dan Kirby after a spectacular battle. Ross Smith in 4th position for the Nuki Monsters Peugeot. Ahmed Abdallah in his Sauber fought his way back to 5th position from Brian Hall and Wouter de Bruyn. 7 drivers on the lead lap in the end. John Uyan in the Jaguar in 8th place. How did Kinnick Barbosa get it back into 10th position, into the top 10, after all of his racing? 9th place in front of Matthew Overton in the Dark Thunder Jaguar. Then in 11th place, Dudis Askinas in front of George Angelidis. The AM winner, Guy Sever in the Lavish Spenders Jaguar in 13th overall, ahead of Frank McCurdy in the Peugeot. Joe Miller in the Storm Rider Nissan coming home in 15th. John Meyer, second in the AM class, is 16th overall for Highline Mazda. Manuel Stoll in front of Jacques Vermeulen. Steve Carman and Peter Mayer in the Mazda in 20th position. Then it is Jerry Chen in the Flying Kiwi car in front of his teammate Mark Jones. Alfie Bevan did a great job to be third in the AM category in the Lev Speed Sauber, ahead of Barry DiMarzo in the Lucky Strike Mazda, just missing out on that crucial podium place. Stephen Miller and Eric Moyne in front of Oscar Dancourt, who definitely had his fair share of drama. Gilles Lalonde never really got it together after his early incidents. James Andrew struggling in the yesteryear Jaguar. Brad Nielsen Vestergaard just staying out of trouble in the McDonald's car towards the closing stages of the race. And then our 4 retirements that ended up pulling off before the end of the race. Max Petravki in the Lev Speed Sauber. Matthew Sibagnoni, his teammate. Hugh Samon had a bit of a problem in his Porsche, and then the Whaler racing car of Donat Prodan did not make it to the finish either. But what a duel between Jason Whitehead and Ben Borman. That is the stuff that esports commentators live for, that kind of battle all the way to the finish. And we really did get some magnificent drama out there. Exactly what we signed up for, Troy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so glad to see that Ben Borman and Jason Whitehead both are waiting in the wings. So let's bring him in.
Yes, let us bring both drivers in together, because they are, of course, the 2 race winners, but they are the heroes of the hour as well. Ben Borman taking victory in the Purist, Jason Whitehead taking victory in the Pro. But gentlemen, that was for pride and bragging rights as much as it was for a race victory here at Suzuka. What a great job. First of all, to you, Jason. I mean, the pressure Ben threw at you for the entirety of those last 12 laps. I mean, you must have been absolutely sweating cobs.
Yeah, I definitely was. I didn't think I had the tires left to keep the lead, but the lap car held me, and I just went for it. And once I was out in front again, I was able to defend, and it was wild.
I mean, it certainly looked like you were absolutely leaning on the limit there. Just how easy was it to be able to balance the pace of the strategy? Because it looked like you were going quite aggressive on the strategy very early. Was that always the plan?
Uh, Not really. I was planning to take it easy on my tires because I stayed on the same set of hards all race, and then when everything lined up and I was out in the lead, then at the end, uh, I didn't think I had tires to make it happen. I'm still I'm still in race
We
mode.
could
So
tell that you're breathless. You're absolutely
yeah,
breathless
it
after
was.
keeping back for so
I had a
long.
ton of understeer towards the end of the last stint. Was just tons of understeer. And if I drove it a very specific way, it was within the pace I wanted, but it was taking everything I had focus wise.
That's absolutely amazing. It was a really great drive. Ben Borman, I want to come to you now because obviously you had a car that had better mechanical grip than Jason Whitehead there. That is a very tricky car to go after in a straight line. But your mission was almost harder because you essentially had to keep the pressure up on Jason in the straights while trying to keep the car fairly balanced in the corners. That was a very tough race for you.
Uh, well, it was fun because the Peugeot is just always fun to drive and keep balanced. But yeah, the challenge was uh, if anyone with the turbo, even the little turbo that the Nissan's got in front, it was always going to be hanging on long enough in the straights to be able to try and slip under into the corners, which was always a risk. And yeah, Jason was keeping everything covered.
So let's talk about the pit stop strategy because you actually came in a couple of laps after Jason Whitehead the first time, then pitted early. I mean, did you feel that the undercut was on at that point?
I absolutely had a plan, but plans didn't hang together for long out there. So yeah, I was definitely going hard in the first stint, and then used the short middle stint on fresh hards to sort of bolster the time that I'd gained from going hard on softs in the first stint. But somebody crossing the track, I lost all of that advantage, and then uh, just the traffic in the middle stint meant that I couldn't capitalize on the fresh tires, and 2 or 3 seconds here or there would have made the difference.
Yeah, we spotted that. There was a moment, obviously, coming out of the Denia when there was a car directly in front of you, and you had to slam on the brakes to avoid hitting it. And I think losing about 8 seconds. Goodness knows
I
how the
thought
race could have gone.
I think that happened twice. That happened
It
once.
did, yeah.
I can't remember so much was happening. Cars left, right. But yeah, I think that happened twice. Once when I lost a chunk of time, which would have been useful, and then when I thought I had the race,
But well,
uh,
we're
it
talking
happened again.
about traffic, Ben, obviously. But Jason, you had your fair share of it as well. You weren't exactly completely out of the woods for most of that race either. You had your fair share of scares in that one too.
Oh yeah, I definitely did. I had one spin, a car that had stepped over on my line, trying to avoid another. I think I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I bumped him in the rear and spun around. Luckily, I was able to. I think I lost 10 seconds or so, but it seemed like Ben had hit some traffic, so I ended up gaining it right back. And then I had a lap car that felt like it turned in on me. I'm not sure. I have to look at the replay, but I got lucky and didn't get taken with him. He seemed to go off in the grass and he was okay. But there was some moments, plenty of them.
I mean, essentially, the two of you raced each other incredibly hard, but it looks like you both lost about the same time as each other. So that really was as close a battle as the two of you could have given each other. It was fantastic to watch, we have to say. Troy, any questions for Ben and Jason?
Well, something that's just so cool about the situation is they were racing so hard for the overall lead, but technically they're both sitting here as winners. They're both going to get full points for the event. So
Yes,
that's,
indeed.
that's got to be cool feeling.
I'd completely forgotten about that.
Love it. They were so busy in the mode they didn't even know. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was great, guys. I don't really have anything else to ask. It was so entertaining, and really good race to both of you. And the delta between the two cars was fascinating to watch live. We were actually on board with Borman for most of that last battle, and just seeing the pace difference, on the straight, was very interesting. So thank you guys both for that. That was a great race.
Yeah, we are absolutely in awe. That was a great bit of entertainment, Ben, Jason. Obviously, we've got the next race coming up in a few weeks for the 1991. Are you guys very much gelled with the car now, or is there still a little bit of work to do? Ben, I'll turn to you first.
It's hard to say. I didn't expect the Peugeot to be as good at Suzuka as it is. It seems like a car that you have to find a trick for each circuit, so I can't tell yet.
Interesting.
Monza, lots of straights with cars that are faster.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say, next up is Monza, and you're going to have to contend with, those turbo cars, the Sauber and the Nissan. They're going to be fast again.
Yeah, that's going to be
and corners you can't really carve through. So yeah.
Oh, no, well. Indeed. Oh well, I suppose you butter your bread, you've got to eat it. Jason, obviously, this next one coming up obviously could suit you very well, but the lack of grip in the bends could also come back to bite you.
Yeah, the car's got a lot of grip. It's very understeery at times, and if you set it up so that is not the case, then it becomes a different beast to drive. So it's a balance and finding, like Ben said, the tricks for a specific car. The Nissan brakes really well, so you can get a lot there, and in a straight line it's not so bad. So we'll see. I like the car. It's
terrific. Well, we are absolutely in awe, delighted, and stunned by what we've seen. It's been a great race battle. Ben Borman and Jason Whitehead, both class winners, fighting for the victory all the way to the death. Jason Whitehead just pipping Ben Borman at the end there for the overall win. Gentlemen, thank you. Let's do it again sometime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a fantastic race. Troy, we really couldn't have been better spoiled. And we've got more great races to come in the VWSC. We have the 1 hour of Spa next week, of course, for the Virtual World Sports Car Championships, modern hypercars. They're going to be terrific on April 23rd. Heading into May, we'll have 2 rounds from the 1991s. We'll have the 230Ks of Monza, and then the one I think we're all looking forward to, the 2.4 hours of Le Mans on May 21st. Cancel your plans. That is definitely going to be one to hang out for on Saturday night. You're going to have a ball, folks.
Yeah, awesome stuff to come. Awesome race today. The difference in all the different hardware in this series compared to the hypercars are so tight, they're so close and so neatly balanced, right? But just the crazy difference in hardware and the absolute just ridiculousness of that, I think from lap 2 to about lap 15, we couldn't really catch our breath much because there was just this car spinning and these battles side by side and door banging. And there was just all kinds of stuff happening in this race. It was super entertaining, and very much looking forward to Spa in only 7 days.
Indeed, it's going to be a bit of a whirlwind trip for the guys to get themselves ready for the hypercars at Spa. I hope you're going to be tuned in for it as well, folks. A massive thank you to everybody once again from Storm Gang Simulations, and of course all the team at CMS Racing, to my co-commentator Troy Uyan, who's also been managing the cameras, for myself, Jake Sanson. We hope you've enjoyed the action from the 230K at Suzuka. Spa next week, hypercars and GTs. I hope you're getting yourself into position ready for it, because it's going to be just as exciting. From all of us here, thank you, good night, and see you next week.
said he's gonna finish! He tried his best. How did he catch